Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Lost to Marquette. Conwell. And one. Foster thought about it. Conwell gets it up. Got it down. Really tough. It was 21-10. Goal. Gets another. That's 4 threes. Looks like the other guys don't really want to shoot it. Mitchell has an opening, delivers Ross for the dagger. He got it. 6.8. You got time. You got to go. The ball without a timeout. Enright comes to the rim. They say goaltending.
It's just not who they are.
No way. Watch out. Wow. That's who he is. Rebounding, defending, did it all. Oh, Jason Green with the challenge and the rejection of Hurrdat. And now Neal will find McAndrew for the open three. And that is Creighton basketball. Lost ahead. Colton on the run. That's a half-court alley-oop. And the big man sends it home. Timeout, Providence. He moves nonstop, like you said, Nick. And now the lob again. 4 for 4. Ashworth to Colbrenner at the rim.
Good morning. Welcome in to Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi. Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. What's up, DB?
How we doing?
We got a little construction going on around here.
Yeah, new tabletops.
That's what I'm hearing. New
Yeah.
tabletops.
They were giddy yesterday. Outside of actual having to put them together,
Yeah.
I think they were pretty pumped.
It's not a super fun process to put them together, but
Yeah,
appreciate the fine
You
folks.
start having to put things together, and I'm officially not that guy.
Yeah, I'm very, very bad at self-assembly.
Yeah,
Um,
it's kind of weird.
Probably not surprising to anyone that knows me.
Surprise, surprise.
RIP to our favorite app pretty soon.
Yeah, allegedly. Are you into that hype?
I don't know. I don't think it's probably actually going to go away.
Yeah, I'm surprised at all the hand wringing and consternation.
People are very concerned,
Yeah.
you know?
Surprise, surprise.
I believe it when it happens. At no point did I actually think that thing is going away like on the 19th.
You haven't downloaded the extra Chinese version yet?
No. I need a lot of things in my life. Another social media platform isn't one of them.
Oh, I thought maybe with your affinity for some of your certain streaming services that you might be like, yeah, Red Note, let's do it.
No. Is that different than Reddit?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a different thing.
Yeah.
Reddit's like a website. You read stuff.
Still over. It's pretty accurate.
Reddit?
Reddit greater than Wikipedia?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Reddit's it's a cluster.
Is it?
Yeah.
I'll figure out how to use Reddit one day, maybe.
No, you're exactly right.
The only time
Thank you, Marcus.
The other time I ever use Reddit is sometimes when I Google stuff, it'll pop up as one of the options. And then I'm like, no, I don't want that one.
Do you enjoy the new challenge of fact-checking AI?
No, it's terrible. Not a fan.
I kind of like it. Holds people accountable. Yeah, I mean,
I like it when it's right because it makes your life easier.
yeah.
But it pulls from like random stuff off the internet. So it's not always, I don't know if you know this. There's a lot of things on the internet that aren't true.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
so sometimes AI gets fooled by the internet. And then I get fooled by AI, and it's a vicious circle.
It's It's AI anarchy.
We're just out here,
We're just out here. Claude have mercy. You had to be pretty happy last night with your curmudgeonly Blue Jay fan self.
I am generally a curmudgeon. I don't know that I've been curmudgeonly. I have been a little
Who would
cranky.
have ever thought that of the three of us, Matt DeMarinis would be the comedic? He would be the comedic
Oh,
guy
I
of the
would.
bunch.
I would.
But I'm funny. He may be funnier. We're both funny at your expense.
Are you?
I love you,
Yeah,
Dan.
you guys were just like trolling me yesterday.
We weren't trolling you. Coach Mack was clearly
which
trolling
I
you.
do not appreciate.
It's just funny. I love like inevitably if I let you talk long enough, you will box yourself into a corner.
No. I don't
So
think
it's
that's
like
true. I'm
you-
very wiggly. I'll get out.
You don't give yourself a ton of wiggle room. You try. But I mean, you had to be surprised, right? Felt like the number was good. We both predicted they would cover. By the way, if you listen to bet on it,
You did all right yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Between the three of us.
Yeah.
Or two of us.
Illinois.
Wait, what was yours?
I just took Creighton, I think.
Yeah. You had the Jays.
Yeah. I didn't take any other ones.
Took Xavier and Arizona.
Yeah, Arizona. Oh, Arizona was the one that I didn't think the number looked right on.
Yeah.
And
You didn't like Xavier either.
No, I didn't like Xavier.
Xavier was very, very shaky with about 4 to go.
Not nearly as shaky as Marquette.
Yeah, that was. Did you guys like what I was doing? I was like, wow, I knew the number was bad. I thought DePaul would cover, but not win.
No.
And it just kept. I was kind of joking about the win thing,
but they just kept hanging.
And then I was like, oh my gosh, they may win.
I
win the thing outright.
Was almost positive they wouldn't because it's DePaul. And then they almost didn't cover in overtime.
Yeah, because it got to 10.
It was like 13.5 was the number.
I was like, ooh.
It was
although
it was like my Nebraska play against Iowa where I was like, oh, they got this, and then they get boat raced in overtime.
It gets to overtime.
I got PTSD from overtime.
You know, I've everybody's seen some horrific bad beats.
Mm-hmm.
Horrific, right? Van Pelt has made a whole segment.
Yeah.
There's a laundry list.
Yep.
You will never top last night.
For which one?
Guess who never uses extremes? I don't.
Yeah.
When I say never, I mean never.
On which game?
So
never, ever,
I'm
ever.
surprised this didn't hit your algorithm.
Okay.
So last night, North Texas was playing East Carolina.
Okay.
The total was 128.
Oh, wow. Okay.
128. So, depending on whatever, like it was sweaty. Like 2 minutes, they didn't really score. So 67-59.
Okay.
No, 69-57.
Okay, so you're at 126?
Yeah.
Okay.
So North Texas has the ball, and there's like a 1 second differential between the shot clock and the game clock.
Okay.
North Texas dribbles the ball out. It's half a second.
Sure.
It's half a second. North Texas dribbles the ball out. Horn sounds. People get up.
Mm-hmm.
The players are going to shake hands. No.
The refs are like, no, we got to.
So they look at the clock.
Play the half second.
North Texas's coach is like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
It's fine. We're up 12.
Yeah.
They put 0.5 seconds on the clock.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, no.
They inbounds the ball to the East Carolinian, who proceeds to hit about a 60-footer at the buzzer.
Oh, no. Are you serious?
He hit a 60-footer at the buzzer.
And he got it off?
So the score didn't change. Because they're going to like the end of they're shaking hands. I won't say nobody, but
most people didn't even know the score changed.
You, like 99.99999% of the country were like, oh, we're either not watching.
Yeah.
Or, okay, we're just going to assume it was 67-50 or 69-57.
Yeah.
No, they flashed the score at the very end when they were shaking hands. That joker said 69-60.
Oh, no. Oh, wow.
I mean, that's an
all-timer.
That is the most disgusting thing you could probably. And I remember about 4 or 5 years ago, West Virginia was playing Syracuse.
Mm-hmm.
And it was I don't know, it was like 2.5, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And no, it was 4.5. And West Virginia missed a three.
Mm-hmm.
It was 4. It was like 72-68 or something like that. And there's 0.9 seconds on the clock. Mm-hmm. West Virginia misses the 3. And they fouled Syracuse.
Oh, no.
And Syracuse goes down. It makes 2 free throws with under a second on the clock. I've seen stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right? I watched Howard Isley once for the Jazz.
Yeah. Oh, I remember Howard Isley.
Dude took a 5-second on the inbounds. Held the 5 seconds. That Utah couldn't inbounds the ball. And the Rockets hit a quote-unquote meaningless 3.
Meaningful to some.
Yeah. Last Memphis, Houston 2 nights ago. Memphis hit a 3 at the buzzer to make it 2.
Yeah.
It was 128-115 with 0.8 seconds left. They inbounds the ball. Memphis, no, two seconds left.
Mm-hmm.
Memphis shoots a three, it goes in. It's 121-18. Like, there's been some of those.
Yeah.
But in college, he made a 60-footer.
That's unbelievable. You know what my favorite good beat of all time is?
What's that?
Probably like 8-9 years ago.
The lateral game in college football?
No.
Was that Wisconsin? Or was that Ohio State?
No. Oh, no, that was
It was
yes.
was it Northwestern and Ohio State?
Yeah, it was. So I was actually on the right side of that one.
Really?
Yeah.
Good on you.
So that was stressful, to say the least. My favorite one of all time is Virginia and Miami were playing like 8-9 years ago. It's like peak Tony Bennett, Virginia.
Yeah.
And I pretty much just bet the under on Virginia every game that season. I think it was the year they ended up losing to UMBC.
And I remember a couple times Virginia would be in like the 116s.
Yeah, no, it was sub 120 for sure.
Okay.
And they were playing Miami. This game went to double overtime and still hit the under.
That's incredible.
I swear, like it was. I think the final in double overtime was like 55-54.
Are you? I said this in passing yesterday.
Yeah.
Are you really paying attention to how bad Miami is?
I was paying attention right after the Larinaga thing, and then I was like, "Oh, this team's very, very bad," and I felt like I knew who they were at that point.
They got rolled by Florida State at home. And
Also
Florida
not-
State
also not good.
is
Also not good.
El Terrible.
Can we?
That's fine.
So, my buddy texted me last night. Can we just talk about how bad the ACC is for a minute?
Listen.
It's horrifying.
So when we were going, I think it was me, you, and young Jacob, right? It
Okay.
was Jacob.
Yeah.
Right? And AJ was in here. And we were talking about the Big East.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know where I was hoping the conversation didn't go? In all that hand-wringing we were doing within the Big East, I was like, oh, shoot.
The
man,
ACC?
I'm notorious for talking conference strengths. Let's not do that this year. I mean, the conference is total
It's terrible.
trash.
Is there a team you like in there besides Duke?
No.
And I know you don't like Duke, but
You meant as a good team.
yeah.
No.
Because they're playing really, really well right
Yeah,
now.
and Duke defends, so that's the scary thing.
And I know
I mean, that's one of the best defensive teams in the country.
I was a little hard on Cooper Flagg coming in, but he has found himself offensively over the last month or so.
Coop gets buckets.
Yeah, like he's figured.
And it is important to him to start to remember,
Differentiate.
He wants to know he's gonna let you know who the suspect is.
Yeah, he's gonna leave his fingerprints.
Yeah,
for sure. But no, I look at that league and I go, there's a lot of big names and a lot of really bad teams there.
Yeah, it's atrocious.
I don't even know what to do with it. And then you've got the SEC where I'm like, are you guys just going to be good at basketball now? Is that a thing?
Although last night was drunk.
Yeah, it was weird.
Oh my god.
So Bama lost to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And then A&M
They lost
by 10.
Yeah.
Or somewhere like that.
Missouri beat Florida.
Yep. But pretty aggressively.
Now this was winless, but I think LSU lost at home. Did LSU lose at home?
LSU beat Arkansas.
Did they beat Arkansas?
Yeah, Arkansas lost again. They're
Okay,
over.
that was so that was LSU's first SEC win.
Yeah, and Arkansas still doesn't have one.
Yeah, that's weird. Terrio and my man, little Boogie Flan.
Yeah, there's a lot of John Calipari's wash talk today.
He's just, I just think offensively, he's just he just needs to hire like 1990s, mid 1990s Norm Chow.
Just find his version of that.
He's just not there. Do you watch them?
Yeah, not a lot anymore because it's a little rough, but it's been the same thing since Kentucky. I mean, it's not
good.
Like it's the same argument or the same complaint people would have about his Kentucky teams. Like, there's not a lot of coherent offense going on there.
Yeah, pretty bad. So the SEC it was one of those nights.
It was one of those nights in the SEC. Oh, it was Auburn, Mississippi State. That's what I was thinking of. That Auburn kind of boat raced them a little bit.
So, isn't Mississippi State in the top 20?
They're 15.
Okay, I sometimes you never know.
I don't know about them.
Never know. I don't know about me.
I don't know.
That's a lot of numbers. Man.
Not sure about Mississippi State either. It is super weird to see Ole Miss and Mississippi State both ranked.
Yeah,
in basketball.
I don't think either one of them can play dead. But I don't know. I still don't know if Auburn's the best team in the country, though.
I don't know who is, though. Like right now, I would probably say Duke.
Really?
I think so.
Okay, so I think the thing that Duke will have to figure out is there's a certain level of physicality that they're missing.
Fair.
When I watch the SEC, Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a healthy Janai Broom and Flag. I probably at this juncture would take Broom.
You think so?
Head to head.
Sure. Yeah.
He would deal Flag fits.
Yeah.
Just because they don't play like that in the ACC.
He's a physical, more older guy,
and he's gonna touch you.
Yeah.
I mean, he got teed up the other night for guy kind of pawed him in the eye.
Mm-hmm.
He hit like a step back 3 on him, and he gave like the official the what for.
They didn't like that much.
They banged him, and they panned the mic on his face, and he looked like your boy Opie in Sons of Anarchy, kind of like missing part. You know, where
he's got
it wasn't Opie, it was who's the dude that AJ put the hit out after in the pin?
I don't know. I didn't.
Taylor? Curtis or Otis? Otis, maybe. I think it's Otis.
I didn't watch it.
Where are my Sons of Anarchy people? Is it Otis?
Opie is the guy from Remember the Titans, right?
Opie's the dude that got beat to death. And he's
the Remember the Titans guy, though. He's Gary Bertier.
Was that Opie?
I think so.
Wow.
I think it's Gary Bertier.
If it was, that was an incredible acting job.
I'm almost positive.
He was probably. So Opie may be my favorite, most depressing character of all time.
Yeah, Ryan Hurst. It's Gary Bertier.
I'm like, just get it together for me, bud. I want to cheer for you. Come on, Opie. Get it together.
I mean, Opie is a name that you're kind of like, oh man, he's probably gonna be a little bit of a bummer.
Yeah, I was right. Opie was my dude. Opie was my dude.
Yeah.
And the only other, like, you ever cheer for people like that in movies and they just can't quite get right?
Yeah, I have a hard time with movies like, so I have a really hard time with shows and movies where people are like self-sabotaging all the time.
Yeah,
selfish.
You're not gonna you're not gonna like Opie then.
When it's one of those like, hey, like, stop doing this. This is mostly your fault. Knock it off.
Yeah.
To be fair, I have a problem with people like that in real life too, but I don't like watching it in like TV and movies. Like, it just makes me mad. It's like, hey, stop doing stupid things. Your life would be better.
Yeah, that show, man.
You know?
And here I am. I'm only like 8 years late to that show.
Hey, that's quicker than some.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Way quicker than The Godfather.
That's what I was thinking.
By decades.
Yeah, you're like
30
years late on that one. Maybe more, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
Sean, I believe that's Channel 3 Sean chimes in. He says, there's a team down the road in Ames that would like to join the chat.
Yeah, I am, you know what, SK? I am definitely.
I mean, if you're talking physicality, they're going to give it to you.
I told you about, like, I watched them, like, wire to wire the other day against Texas Tech.
Yeah.
That is a real, and I asked our boy, Myron Metcalf, I'm the big Lipsy guy.
Yeah.
He's incredible. He made like the game send it into OT play against Texas Tech, who, by the way, apparently in the Big 12, if you're up 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, just wait, because it'll go away.
That's what the Creighton game felt like last night. They get up by like 9, and then Providence would get up by like 3 or 4, and then they get up by 11. And
Providence
is 5.
Providence is not good.
No, they're very bad. They're very
you,
bad. They're very bad.
Not a good basketball team.
No, it's not at all. Not a good team. And my guy Kim English needs to chill with the stomping.
I kind of like him though.
That's fine.
You know what it is?
Yeah.
This is a total brother thing. I like the taper.
Can I?
Is that okay?
No, that's fine. You can.
I like his. He has a good barber.
I mean, part of the reason I like Jay Wright was because of the suit game. So
you didn't or did?
Did.
Oh, I was gonna say.
No, I also really appreciate how good of a coach he is. Like, I respect it. But the suit game is strong.
Okay, so I think of you because you guys have similar necks.
Mm-hmm.
Do you not want to hit old Buzz up and tell him, like, is there when you have a neck like? And he's like losing his mind.
Yeah.
Last night in the A&M game.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you just want to like reach through the TV and undo a button?
Yeah, I don't ever do my top button.
Bro, and he rocked the vest too, so he left himself zero wiggle room.
I do appreciate the vest look. Buzz is a big vest guy.
Yeah.
But no, I never do the top button. I
like every time he does his interviews, he's like, I was like, oh my gosh, smoke him up, Johnny. Smoke him up.
Smoke him if you got him. No, you gotta undo the top button and count on the tie to keep the shirt collar together.
It is. It makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I just want to be like.
he does wear it a bit tight.
Yeah, it's snug.
He's got a little PJ Fleck to his Taylor game, and it's like, Bud, I appreciate you, Buzz, but you don't have the same body type as PJ Fleck.
Speaking of which, how about them staying in house defensively
For Minnesota?
Yeah.
How about Clemson taking a defensive coordinator from the Big Ten?
So my favorite thing about that, and maybe he was only cool because he was in the doghouse, but your boy AJ, like super Berean, went to work on the internet and in like 5 minutes explained to me, because Jacob and I, were you still in here?
I don't remember.
We were like, why would Tom Allen go from Penn State to Clemson?
Yeah, that was still in here because I was like, maybe because somebody brought up maybe he's religious.
I did.
Yeah.
I was like, I think, I think like there's something in his heart. Like he's pretty spiritual. Like,
and
maybe he could get that with Sweeney.
Yeah.
Like that climate. And we kind of left it. And like 5 minutes later, Austin had like 15 articles.
Really?
One was fresh, like couldn't have been, but you know how you get the minutes?
Yeah.
One couldn't have been but like 1 minute old.
Yeah.
And he was like, because it just happened.
Yeah, you had read a tweet and we started talking about it.
And he went to work, and you know who wrote it was Will. We had just talked to Backus.
Backus?
Yeah, and he goes, hey, fresh off the press. And it had a lot to do with work environment and work culture and not being micromanaged.
Well, because we also brought up, because you brought up the religion thing, and I was like, oh, you don't think James Franklin's super religious? And you brought up the old joke about him wanting
making sure that you had good-looking wives,
assistant coaches with good-looking spouses.
Closer,
yeah. And so I was like, yeah, I mean, maybe Dabo's a little bit more religious than our guy James Franklin. But no, it's a good hire, I think, for Clemson.
It's a great hire.
Like that's a really quality move by Dabo.
It's a fantastic hire.
Yeah,
because it's not a better job.
No, probably not.
Fudge. DC at Penn State, DC at Clemson.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Cut it out.
Listen. I'm thinking about it for a second.
No, I like to rush your process so I can get you off the game. You ever had anybody try to speed you up in guards?
I have people trying to speed me up in tempo in a basketball game. Try to speed you up a little bit.
Yeah,
we will embrace it.
Trying to speed you up.
It's like, nah, try to slow this thing down.
Just cave a lot quicker. It's easier that way.
I don't want to do that.
But anyway, so that was I know you're very upset sometimes with the way that Creighton plays, and I know you lost your mind over Zugic's possible and one that you clearly jinxed.
That was my bad.
Yeah, T-Bird.
Listen, I'll eat that one. That's my L.
The funniest thing I read all night was the Zugits. I'm a child.
Chicken Zugits. I lulled. I laughed out loud.
I gave it a good 3 minutes.
That was a pretty good one.
And you know what I really landed the plane on?
What?
I kind of looked around and I'm clearly, no one in there. What would people say if they knew I was laughing this hard at this? They'd be like,
that guy's
I'm not listening to another word this year.
Guy's certifiable.
It was funny because he even gave it the hyphen.
I know it was classic. I have to ask you something about your boy Kim English here in a second. That's
nice,
DB.
my boy, because I like his haircut.
I'm Ravi Lulla. It's more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Coach, let's start with the dynamic duo. Ashworth and Kolkman are doing a little bit of everything. Another game where they combine for a ton of production. It's got to be pretty fun to coach those two guys.
It's a fun team to coach all the way around. I got a bunch of really good dudes that are really connected, and we certainly have our warts, but we're getting a little bit better as the season moves on. And Providence has been playing really good basketball. They've been scoring it at a high level, and I thought defensively we answered the bell.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage, reminding you to keep your eyes focused and straight ahead as you're driving to work this morning. Your job as the driver is to drive. Do not get distracted. Message from the NDOT Highway Safety Office. DB, let's get to our friend Kim here. Wants to talk a little about Creighton. I'm guessing there might be a Mason Miller take in here. Kim, what's going on?
There might be a Mason Miller take in here. No kidding. How did you guess? He's back. Maybe.
I had to do. You shouldn't even call and want to talk to Ravi, Kim, because in our group chat with Maddie, there's only two defenders of one M&M, and it is not the gentleman on the other end of this phone call.
Don't let him fool you. He's trolling me with Mason Miller support. It's not real Mason Miller support. And I would be much more supportive of Mason Miller if I didn't feel like it was costing me my Fedor Zugic minutes.
Yeah. Here's the thing: is I was talking to another sports radio personality, not on the air.
How dare
so
you?
Don't get your, I know, don't get your panties in a wad. But we decided, sorry about that. We decided that apparently I have an affection for underperforming small forwards.
Oh,
Oh,
were
is that
you
your-
big
Mason Miller,
Ronnie Harrell guy?
Ronnie Harrell. Yeah, huge Ronnie Harrell fan. Huge.
Shoot, that's kind of
and I
funny.
can only hang on to this for so long, Mason, unless you at least hit it.
He did hit a couple
But the point
big
is
shots
hustle.
yesterday. Hit a good couple big shots yesterday.
He actually dunked
good
too.
hustle.
You guys, are we gonna act like he didn't dunk a basketball?
We gonna call it that? We gonna call that a dunk?
I saw the lift.
That's not a dog. Come on.
Credit
That's
card
not a
check.
dog.
I felt bad for him because
But
he
I have
used
a
to be pretty
question.
bouncy
I know before, he hurt his
before
leg.
the leg
Yeah.
thing. Like, so I did feel bad for him.
Yeah, is that what this is? Is this about the leg thing? Nobody talks about the leg thing. I don't.
Yeah,
No?
I think
Is it the
Because
leg
it
thing?
happened in the off. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. You don't hear about it. Like,
but like he did break his leg this year.
yeah, people don't talk about it.
Right. So I also, one thing that people aren't talking about is when and why did we lose Larry Johnson?
That came and went, didn't it?
Yeah, it seemed like it was not a great fit. I think they lost him over the break officially.
These are the breaks.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if he's officially entered the transfer portal yet because I don't think it's open, but he announced his intention to enter the transfer portal at the break. So
Back in the day.
yeah, I don't have. It just didn't seem like a good fit. I don't have a much better answer than that, unfortunately.
Well, he was too athletic, or what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, they didn't want him to make Mason Miller look bad on those breakaway dunks, so they're like, "Hey, Larry, you gotta go. You're getting too much elevation here, bud."
So I'm still trying to figure out who our point guard is next year because, unless Ashworth gets his 25th year of basketball. But
He already looks about 38 out there.
And it does not look any bit of 6 feet tall that they announced him at either, but that's okay.
No, he's still dribbling.
yeah,
around
well,
guys,
I say I'm 5 foot and I'm not, but it's okay.
Oh shoot!
So let's get over that.
Kim, appreciate the call.
Thanks, Kim. No, I will say I do bang on Providence, but they had scored in the high 80s. They hit somebody with 91 last week. So I mean, okay, but not.
They were one of those teams that they're not very good, but they will play you tough at times, and so it's gonna be a bad loss. But
and I think it was Seton Hall or somebody really not very good that they hung the 90 spot on.
Oh yeah, Seton Hall's real bad. Can I ask something about your boy Kim English though? What?
He's not my boy.
You love Kim English. You just told me that.
I explained it.
You're like,
said
huge fan of him at Missouri.
No, it's not what I said.
Really loved it when he was an assistant at Tulane.
Yeah. Okay, Tim Johnson.
Then you got on that George Mason train.
I was all about,
and now you're
I
riding.
was all about the taper fade.
Now you're riding with. So I'm not. I promise. I think. Yeah, I'll let you be the judge here. I don't think I'm just doing the all black guys look alike thing. But I'm sitting there last night, like 2 rows behind Kim English. No big deal. And like he's giving me some Jameis Winston, like skinny Jameis Winston vibes.
Okay.
No big deal.
I'm gonna pretend that the humble brag was pretty funny.
I thought, whoa.
But we're just gonna slide on by whether all the brothers look alike.
It's the mannerisms. Like he does the eyebrow thing that Jameis does, and he makes some of the like same shocked expressions that Jameis does when he looks confused.
It's flickering.
Like there's some Jameis like skinny Jameis vibes. I know it's hard. If you took like 30 pounds out of Jameis's face, he's kind of got some Kim English in him.
I'm you know what?
I'm a little right, aren't I?
So there's one.
Yeah. Like he kind of like
no.
Mannerisms are similar.
I'm just telling you.
I need you to find a video.
Amazing Daniel will hammer you.
I need you to find a video.
I think my 2 country guys were closer than this.
Your 2 country guys. Oh, yeah.
I think Caviezel and Cavill were closer than this.
No.
Maybe.
No.
Are you joking me right now?
No, like look, it's the mannerisms. I'm not saying they're like dead ringers for each other, but they have very similar mannerisms. It was the eyebrows that got me.
I would have bought Kevin Ollie maybe.
No.
If I knew any
the names of any Indian people besides me, seems like a bigger problem. DB, kind of about some cultural awareness. I mean, there's only like 1 billion of us on the planet. A literal billion.
I was going to say something close to that. If I just had some similar comps where I could come back with something. No. I mean, do you got like when I know people are like they only know the names of like 2 Indian people, and they're like, "Oh, you kind of remind me of M. Night Shyamalan or Aziz Ansari," and I'm like, those are the 2 Indian people you know of exist on this planet.
That's all.
There are 1 billion of us.
Oh,
we make up like 16% of the global population.
I don't even feel good. We got to chill out.
You got to. You all right?
Yeah, I might have like
that thing wet.
I'm just saying.
I'm gonna try not.
So did you see any of Kevin Ollie's like or not? Of Kim English. That's you. You did that to me.
This is giving me lean on me, boys in the hood vibes.
You did that to me. That's not my fault.
So back to Kevin Ollie.
Did you see?
I'm black and I'm open.
That's not even Boys to the Hood. Lean on me.
Wow. And it was James Earl Jones.
Like I said, it's Samuel L. Jackson.
Are you not entertained?
By the way, that went to DVD fast.
They do that now.
Is that okay?
Yeah, about a month in theaters and you're gone.
You know what's funny is I'm looking at this gentleman.
I knew as soon as I turned it was going to be a Steelers headline.
Whose name I forget.
Dominic Foxworth?
No.
The other guy?
That's
Jeff Saturday.
The other brother.
Well, no, Jeff Saturday's white. I don't know if you know that.
I almost was going to say
he's not Indian either.
That he was giving me Calvin Johnson vibes, but I didn't want to sound like you.
On the left?
Yes.
I don't know who that is.
What happened? Him.
No, he doesn't look like Calvin Johnson.
Megatron?
No. It'd be funny if it was Calvin Johnson.
It's not. He's entirely too little.
Yeah. Calvin Johnson's a big dude.
Yeah.
Kevin Ollie, 6'6". I mean, Kim English, 6'6". You had Kevin Ollie on my brain now. It's not my fault.
So clearly you thought Jameis Winston was coaching Providence last night.
It probably would have been just as effective. Maybe the Lord would have delivered him from some pick sixes.
So did 6 of 12 bother you from the foul line? Anomaly?
Anomaly, I think. Yeah. I mean, it was frustrating, but I don't think it was. I'm not going to read too much.
You're willing to overlook that when you shoot 45% from three.
Yeah, it does help. I'm not going to lie to you. And you hold the other team to under 40% from the field.
I can't believe Trout's game now.
Yeah.
The catch and shoot thing has me in.
He's quick, too.
Tickles.
Some of those were quick releases.
He could be one of those guys going forward. Like, that when he comes off the bench, would you think of Isaac Trout an instant offense?
Kind of.
Hashtag too soon?
I mean, probably too soon, but I could see it happening.
When they go big, and he is on the floor with JG, they're long. I've
kind of advocated for this since the offseason. I would like to see him play backup center and have a stretch five. I just want to see it. I just want to see what it looks like.
Yeah, you're just not going to sit call for very long.
No, I know, but I'd rather see those minutes go to Isaac Trout with kind of a different looking lineup than trying to replicate the same thing with Fred King, who is not capable of what Ryan Kalkbrenner is. I mean, very few people are. Coming up next, we may actually set up the show. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. It's Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, reminding you to get to supernovas.com to get your tickets for Sunday's match. The Supernovas return home on Sunday at CHI Health Center. Have a nice little Sunday afternoon at the Chai with the Omaha Supernovas. Get those tickets at supernovas.com. DB.
What up?
Do you know who's going to be on the show today?
Yes, Brian Christopherson, Mitch Sherman, and AK Channel 47.
Yeah.
I think it's just Channel 7. Channel 47 back in the day was Fox Sports.
4 Channel 7?
There
It's
you
40,
go.
It's 42 anyways, if you're going to be snarky.
No, KETV is not 42.
No, there is no 47. It was KPTM, Fox 42.
That's not what I was doing.
Well, what were you going to do?
Back in the day on Cox Cable, Channel 47 was Fox Sports Net.
Back in the day.
Was it?
Yep.
I was at my mom's last night, and she has Cox, and I was actually asking her what the sports numbers were.
Ooh. Is it still 31:30?
Although one of
for
them,
ESPN, ESPN2?
She's in the kitchen making something, and she's like, I don't know. She goes, talk to the microphone. It's on the remote.
Well,
I go, how do you do that? She just hold it down.
are you kidding me?
It's like, wow. I guess I need to get a little more hip.
The idea of your mom teaching you how to use technology is really funny to me.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know you could do that.
That you could talk to the remote?
Yeah, I hit the microphone and I said, Villanova basketball.
Yeah.
That's how I said it.
Just like that?
Pretty much.
Yeah, sometimes you got to enunciate real well. You know, I got one of those Alexas sometimes that if I kind of mumble, it won't turn the lights off for me.
Do I have a problem with my enunciation?
No, I'm saying in
Oh, my
general,
goodness.
people have to enunciate to make the robots hear you better. Like I'll be like, hey, Alexa, turn the lights off in the lounge. And she'll be like,
You got about 2 weeks to get your act together.
What'd I do?
I'm going to give you 2 weeks. On February 1st, man, it's Black History Month. You better be nice.
I got a special present for you for Black History
Oh,
Month.
my gosh.
I do.
Islands in the stream. I told you how I feel about that month, didn't I?
I don't think you have. Maybe you have.
Tragedy of the wall.
I got a special present for you.
Great. Considering I'm half Iowegian. Can't wait, M. Night.
All right, Aziz.
Anyway, I can't wait for this portal thing to change from the 2nd to the 12th.
Yeah, I don't.
I know you're not vibing.
I don't think they should get rid of the spring portal. I'm okay moving the early one. I think they
just
should
getting something off the plate in December.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
I do think they should still keep the spring portal.
No, I agree with you because Nebraska's going to have another mass exodus.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more fair to players to have an opportunity to be like, hey, I'm not where I thought I was going to be, or something changed here that I would still like to go. Because I think most coaches I think a lot of coaches will be like, hey, like stick it out through spring. Let's see where you're at. You know, we think you can still be this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you have to give people that opportunity. Like I have no problem at all getting it off the December calendar. It's chaotic. As long as you're going to be fine academically with that window there.
So here's the deal. Like tonight, or not tonight, Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So Ohio State and the Domers will have 5 days to find a school if they're leaving.
I think
that's the calendar.
I think that's right. Yeah.
God, that is anarchy.
Yeah, I mean, you have to imagine and this is not ideal either, right? You probably have a lot of those conversations already taking place.
I know, which is why I didn't get all the was tampering trending on your deal yesterday?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, how can it not be though?
But here's the other.
And at some point, it's just not tampering, right? Like, you have to think ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're one of those players, you can't be expected not to have conversations before the 5-day period, right? Like, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
And I also wonder, like, okay, if you've got a representative of any kind, like a lot of these players do, and your representative is having those conversations, it's not tampering. Like, your representative can talk to whoever they want to.
Yeah.
At your request or on your behalf or whatever, right? Like, so I know people are like, oh, it's tampering. It's pretty easy to get around that rule.
Right.
It is not. I mean, you can have your dad be like, hey, can you start calling some people? Like, it's not that hard to not have it be tampering, quote unquote. So I don't know why people are sort of freaking out about this. This is like, what would you expect these guys to do? Get it right in 5 days?
Right.
Some of these dudes get recruited for 3-4 years. Right? The first time around.
Allegedly. Yeah.
And so now you got to make your decision in 5 days?
Yeah, now believe me, I don't feel bad for the student or for the athlete, not the student. It's not like,
technically students.
You got a short window.
No, but I think it's
not
reasonable to expect them to talk to other people.
Yeah, that.
Like, I don't feel bad for them, but I'm also like, yeah, okay, have your conversations. Because most of the people that are leaving, there's probably a few that are actually playing in this game.
And when you get to that stage in the game and you're playing for a championship, it's clearly not hurting you.
Yeah. I mean, is there any difference than Ben Johnson doing head coaching interviews right now?
You know what I was going to say, and I had to catch myself.
What's that?
I said the pros is different, but it's not because guys are getting paid. Yeah, it's not.
I mean, it's the same thing.
Did you hear Rick Barnes the other day?
Huh.
He sat a guy, pulled him quick.
Mm-hmm.
He ran a little play, dry erase board, whatever. Somebody asked him in the presser, like, "Hey, why'd you pull such and such?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, we drew up this play, and he turned down the shot and getting a good possession, and so I sat him. I said, if you're not going to do what you're paid to do, then come sit by me. And the media kind of chuckled, and he goes, well, I mean, he is getting paid.
Yeah.
I was like, we're starting to hear that more and more. Coach, remember when Coach Cook said it, and we kind of were like, oh.
Yeah.
But really, he was
being serious.
He was being serious.
100%. These people are on payroll.
Yeah.
Like you're going to have to start treating it a little differently. And that's part of the reason, because of that, that's part of the reason I do want to leave the spring portal open, because if you're not doing what you're being paid to do at a place, and they're like, hey, we're just going to bury you, like, then you should be able to leave. Right?
Yeah, because you know what's not going to change is everybody's not going to be on the same academic calendar. We can't even agree to get everybody on the same number of conference games. So
nobody's ever been on the same academic calendar.
I
know. So that's always been sort of a paper tiger argument.
But it is just funny though that sometimes that's the hurdle that you have to jump for.
Yeah.
For registration.
And let's not pretend like,
because Nebraska starts Tuesday.
Let's not pretend like late enrollment's not a thing. Like, you're telling me they make all these other sacrifices to get certain people in the door, or to I
do feel there is a game to be gamed between admissions
and athletics
and your athletic department. There's
100%.
Zero question.
Yeah, like that is always that's always been the case. It's just going to be more so now.
I probably agree with that.
I mean, it's pretty famously why Stanford went downhill under David Shaw. Jim Harbaugh got him to make some concessions.
By the way, just got another interview in Chicago.
I really like David Shaw, and these interviews kind of make me mad.
Because you feel like
these aren't real interviews. These are Pep Hamilton interviews. These aren't real interviews. He's the guy that doesn't have a job, so they can bring him in, fulfill the Rooney Rule, and then go hire the guy they really want. And don't get me wrong, if I'm David Shaw, I'm doing the interviews, but I'm probably going to make you pay me too. I'm going to be like, hey, each interview is $10,000. Like, I'm providing a service for you, so you can hire the guy you really want. You're going to provide a service for me. Right? Like, hey, my interview fee is $10,000.
Does your view change when the organization puts something out on social media?
No.
Hey, today we just completed our interview with David Shaw, which is what Chicago did yesterday.
Yeah, no, they're doing that, so everybody's
it just seems it comes. Now, whether the interview was, excuse me, I'm telling you, man, I don't know what this is.
Yeah, you got a little chest cold there.
It's in my chesty. I don't want to use the word token.
It's pretty close though.
But you don't do yourselves any favors when you pump it out on social media.
No, but I feel like they think they have to. That would be my guess. Although you do see it with other non-minority candidates.
Correct.
So, yesterday, they do it with coordinators too. Yesterday, the 49ers are like, we interviewed Chris Tabor for the special teams coordinator job.
I just don't know what that is.
Yeah,
that's why I said that. That's why I don't want to
new.
use the word. Yeah, that's why I don't want to use the word token. Are you just keeping us in the loop? Your fan base,
I guess. Or maybe it's a league requirement now to disclose who you're interviewing publicly, and the easiest way to do it is over social media. Like, that might be a thing. I don't know, but it seems like everybody does it now, and they didn't used to.
Yeah, I just, oh man, it's just complicated because I think the Rooney Rule in its original intent, I think, was well intended.
Oh, I definitely think it was well intended.
What's happened with it is
it's just an obstacle they have to navigate.
It's not been good.
No, not at all. And so you end up with the David Shaws and Pep Hamiltons of the world that go on these sham interviews. Like, I could see an NFL team.
But you know what, though? Conversely, we're not doing ourselves any favors by every time you see a guy like Marcus Freeman and you cram a mic in front of his face and you're like, hey, how does it feel to be the first and then insert blank, right? It's like you just kind of perpetuate the madness. And clearly, after the 19th time, and I'm just using Freeman as an example because inevitably it will come up again.
Yeah.
He's uncomfortable talking. It's not that he's uncomfortable, but it's not near as big a deal to him,
for sure,
as it is to some other people that want to keep asking the question.
Yeah.
So move on. It's not about you.
And I thought he's
clearly said it's not about him.
I thought he's answered it well, too.
He's a pro's pro.
That's DB. I'm Ravi. Look, coming up next, we got Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, you got guys walking into Ace Hardware without their shirts on.
Brian Christopherson.
We got a pretty good sewing circle in this state.
Brian Christopherson.
To me, it's like crunch time, baby.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union, AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. What is up, BC?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing better than Mike Woodson this morning, probably.
Hey, that's Ravi's favorite guy.
Whoa. You're mischaracterizing here.
But, I mean, as soon as Indiana hired Mike Woodson, Ravi was like, oh, my gosh, Indiana's back, baby. Super blue blood.
That's the exact opposite of what I said.
NBA pedigree coming home. Here we go.
I didn't know we were just lying to people this morning, DB.
I don't understand.
No, what's the first thing I actually said? That guy sucks.
Yeah, that's pretty much verbatim.
And, that's played out a little bit.
They're really hard to figure out, isn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. I never thought he was a great hire either. It always seemed a little odd, and it sort of feels like the end is nigh, doesn't it? I was watching that one last night, and when the students are doing a Fire Woodson chant in the first half of a game in January, that's usually a bad sign. Still a long season to turn it around, but that kind of captivated me. I've always been interested in Indiana basketball for some reason because I know why. It feels sort of it correlates with Nebraska football in some ways, so I always kind of pay attention to it. And going on their message board after a game like that is always sort of an experience too, if people want a fun little hobby.
So, let's go along with this analogy here with Indiana basketball and Nebraska football. Like, is Mike Woodson their Mike Riley? Where are we at here in their progression?
Yeah, that's not bad. 2 Mikes, both sort of same age group, I guess you'd say. And I think they were both hires that caught everybody a little bit off guard, and you didn't know how it exactly fit with what you're trying to do right now. They pour a ton of NIL into that program, and they have the resources, so they're going to expect results too. So I don't know. If you match up the years too of when both programs had great success and sort of dipped and trying to get back, there's some parallels. So we'll see who wins the race up the mountaintop first, and hopefully around here it's Nebraska football.
It's too soon, maybe, for whatever January 17th will be, or 16th tomorrow, whatever. But it seems like this game with Rutgers coming to town at home, if Nebraska wants to get to 9 minimum wins in the Big Ten, that this is, I'm going to say this, is this must win?
Yeah. I'm always hesitant. I think you were too in saying it, but it's one of those like 4 or 5 turns in the season where you feel like your back's against the wall a little bit. And, Nebraska lost a game against a team last week. We talked about it, that had that same situation in Iowa. I think they felt like if they lost that one, they were really in the deep end. And so it's really just about you feel that constant pressure, I think, in conference play, which is a good pressure maybe, and Nebraska has thrived on it to just hold serve when you're at home. Obviously, we know the success NU has in PBA. They're going for the record of 21 straight wins. But, yeah, you're dealing with 2, first-rounders in Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper. I'm looking at their numbers. Harper's averaging 20 and 5, and Bailey's 19 and 7. So, you got to try to shut not just one guy off, but 2 guys off that can really go in on you. So Nebraska's going to have to get back that defensive edge that sort of went away for a week.
BC, it's those types of games are always tricky, right? Because as you mentioned, you've got a talented team in Rutgers that could definitely catch you, but you look at their resume, you look at their record, that would go down as a bad loss for Nebraska. Like, how tricky of a spot is that for Fred Hoiberg?
Yeah, those are the toughest games. You nailed it, because you don't get much you're just supposed to do it, like you get the win and you move on. And if you lose, you feel like you really got dinged as far as your net rankings and all those metrics people look at. So, last year's team, I felt, had to deal with this, like I said, 4 or 5 times, and they always seem to respond. And we've seen so far, aside from Sunday was a real disappointment. Not that they lost at Purdue. There's no shame losing at Mackey Arena, but it was just like kind of a no-show competitive performance from, 8 minutes out. And so that was the first time really after a loss, Nebraska didn't follow it up by coming back with sort of a tenacious performance. So hopefully they got that out of their system from last week. We did know when we looked at this schedule, the first 5 games were very difficult for Nebraska, but there's not much room for error here. I mean, the margin for error is slim when you're not just like a great offensive team, which they've acknowledged they're not, Nebraska. And so you've really got to have that grinder game at full tilt, whenever you're on your home court. So hopefully they have it tomorrow. I think the first 4 to 5 minutes will be huge, as it usually is at PBA, where you kind of set a tone. You get the first 50-50 ball, all that stuff. I think it will kind of adds up, especially when you're playing kind of a younger roster on the other side.
Interesting. When you think Nebraska basketball, do you think 45 in the net? Does that sound right to you?
About right now, yeah. I mean, there's been a cocktail of good and bad in there so far, and 45 sort of right in that sweet spot. And so I think you look at that, though, as it was a bad week, but you also see 45 in the net and stuff like that. And the metrics, you're not destroyed by any means. You're in position where I think if a lot of people were honest, like I said about those first 5 games, when I saw the schedule, and I know Hoiberg's even said it publicly, that they got a bear of a schedule right off the bat. You go to Purdue, you go to Michigan State, you don't complain about it. But if person on the outside looking in just is candid about it, they probably thought they're not going to win those 2, and maybe they're 2-3 right now. What do they do after that? So they're 2-3, like a lot of people might have guessed, and now it's time to show you're that veteran team that doesn't doesn't sit there licking their wounds for too long and moves on and realizes like this is a big week for them. You can have a chance to, by Sunday afternoon, be sitting at 4-3, and then suddenly everything's a lot better, or your season's on the brink. So that's how dramatic it is in college basketball. It feels like 4 or 5 days, and it can really flip the mood completely on its head, one way or another.
BC, I think BB and I were talking about this earlier this week, and I asked the question: is Nebraska's defense good enough to win if Nebraska's offense continues to be what it is?
Yeah, I don't know if they are or not. I know that they think they can be, and I guess that's what matters was inside their operation, that you have that belief in it and what it can do. And they've had games certainly where they have, taken other teams just completely out of the mix. And, they had that run before last week where they'd held like 5 or 6 teams in sort of the 50s, and teams were averaging like 56 points a game or something for a little run there. It felt really good. And then you do have to be careful about, I think, also not overreacting sometimes within the season. There's things to fix, but also understanding, you had held Iowa down to 37 points for 15 minutes of that game, and then Sanford and goes just completely off like it's a 3-point contest at the NBA. And then, against Purdue, you run into a team where I think they felt like they're contesting shots early, and then maybe they lost their focus a little as the game got out of hand. But 2 teams that can really shoot you out of a gym, you aren't going to see opponents like that every time you step out. So you do have to be cautious about just changing everything completely just because of those 2 results. But certainly, they've got to answer the bell now, and they've got to show they are that. They always say gritty, grimy team. You got to go prove it, because there are some skeptics about it at the moment.
Yeah, and it's just interesting because you look at the Big Ten Conference as a whole, and Michigan State and Michigan and Illinois and Wisconsin hung on last night. I'm still not sure of what to make of Oregon, but as Iowa found out last night, you don't even want to go on the road to Los Angeles, I guess. And if you had to pick to play anybody, maybe it's UCLA. But with such a big conference, the weight that's put on strength of schedule in the metrics, and I guess the quads are supposed to balance that out. But the more variables you have, it's like, you'll be cheering for teams to win that you've beaten just based on it makes you look better, right? It just the conference depth is going to be weird to negotiate if you don't manage or at least tweak some of the grading metrics.
Yeah, I agree. And the thing about the Big Ten is I think it's a tough middle. Like, I really think, obviously, that it's such a huge league, but I heard a few people before the season talk about it being down, and I think sometimes they're more looking at the very top end of the league and what they think of, like, the top 4 or 5 teams. When you're, like, in Nebraska's situation, I'm always looking at those teams. Now we're in, 18-team league. You're looking at, like, 8 through 15. What are those squads made of? And you mentioned USC. I think St. Thomas had 24 last night, by the way, when that went over Iowa. But, that they're a team that suddenly Nebraska plays them in a week. And, maybe 7 days ago, people looked at them and thought, okay, that's a game you should be able to put in your pocket at PBA. Well, they went on the road to Illinois and won, and then they beat Iowa by 11. So that's why I think it's a tough middle of the league, because every team like that, and Rutgers I would include in that category, can give you a problem on a given night. And so while the first 5 games were, I think, probably separate maybe from some of the stuff that's ahead, it's not by much.
I mean, Michigan's top 10 in the net, and they lost to Wake, I think, Arkansas, and Oklahoma. Right, when you think Michigan, just to your point, BC, it's like, I think Michigan, do I think top 10 in the net? But then you look and it's like, I'm not excited to go. I wouldn't be excited to go play them either, right? They just hammered Washington at home.
Washington by
so it's like
20 almost.
I don't know. I'm kind of vibing with you on the perception of the conference, because I wouldn't be chomping at the bit to play Michigan. But then I look, comparatively speaking, and see Michigan State so close, and I'm like, I get it. I know they hammered Nebraska, but Michigan State, I don't know. Like, do I think they're really good?
I think Michigan State's really good.
They're starting to play. They look a little more Izzo-y. I will give you that. Yeah. They're starting to get it together.
I agree. You mentioned about Oregon. I don't have a good read on them yet. I was watching them early in the season. They've been kind of all over the place. They'll have nights when they kind of impress you, and then they look beatable. Nebraska has a trip, not to get ahead of things, where they go out to Oregon and then Washington on February 2nd and the 5th, and that's going to be huge, that West Coast trip. And then you also have both Illinois and Michigan are still coming to PBA this year. And so, I mean, Michigan is 5-0 in the league. That'll be a huge challenge as far as holding serve. We can't take for granted. I mean, last year Nebraska went 10-0 at home. It's going to be a very tall task to try to pull that thing off again. So at some point, this team is going to have to. And I look at Sunday's game, not to get ahead again, but we're on the outside looking in. We can do this. Sunday's game at Maryland's one of those where it's like, okay, what are games you could grab? That's one. I'm not saying I think they will or it's easy. I just think that's one you hope they could maybe steal one like that. So hopefully this is as I say, like a great 5 days for them.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, I've kind of been thinking a lot about this in terms of Nebraska offensively, and I've been trying to figure out if there was something I could supplement this team with, whether that's a guy off the bench or a certain type of player. Been trying to figure out what that would be. Who or what would it be for you to help this team offensively? Is it just another shooter?
Yeah, that'd go a long ways.
I think it's a guy that already gets a fair amount of minutes. I just think Esijan has to shoot it better.
Yeah, Esijan has been streaky. And, he's had a few games where it's been awesome and then a few where it's just completely went the other way. So that's a guy where, if Nebraska is going to be where they want to be on a bracket, I think he's going to have to get on a heat wave here and, be that consistent like he knocked in 4 from outside. And, you look around the league and Wisconsin's doing that, at a pretty good clip. I know they kind of survived last night, but they've been on a roll. And so he's got to be that guy. He's the best weapon there. And then I don't know. There's got to be a wild card maybe. Andrew Morgan has his moments. I don't know if Burke is ever going to quite be that type of guy. Like, I know there was hope that that outside shot would kind of come along. I don't have a great amount of confidence in that at this point. And then I think a big thing, we talked about it last week, is this team just cannot throw away possessions quite as much as they have. They'll have these 2 or 3 trips in a row where they're just completely sloppy with the ball, and they give away a possession. Or against Iowa, we mentioned when Juwan Gary went 5 for 21. He obviously was hustling his butt off, but I didn't think they were very controlled around the rim in that game, and they just wasted some shots. So that's all got to be very precious to a team, that does sometimes scuffle on the offensive end. You got to value each time you have it and each shot you take.
BC, I want to switch to football real quick as we've only got you for a few more minutes here. But
how'd that happen?
Well, we're talking a lot of hoops. Talking a lot of Nebraska ball.
I like it.
No, I wanted to change gears for you a little bit here as we kind of look at what I think is a mostly completed transfer portal class. Maybe a couple names left out there. I know you've started to do some deep dives into some of the younger guys in this transfer class, as whether it's Hunter or Nawari and some of these guys. What have you found about their rise to the high profile recruits and sort of how they've ended up at Nebraska?
Yeah, I mean, the ones I've done, I would say that the thing that stands out about all of them that's common is they didn't let the rankings really affect their rise at all. I think they are guys who are just very focused on their process. And Isaiah Hunter was a guy who he started off, lower star, and he just went out and earned it and ended up a 4-star guy. And I don't know that meant a lot to him. It was just he got it done because he just produced, and he has an extra gear. And that's what you read a lot about from his time coming up, that I was looking at his numbers. He was targeted 57 times last year at Cal and had 40 catches on that. I mean, he's very efficient. He had 219 yards on passes beyond 20 yards. So 219 of what is 570 or whatever he put up. So he could be a threat down the field. The guy that I think is fascinating, who I don't know that people are talking over him, but it's understandably there's a lot of talk about Kean Hunter. But Harley Gilmore might have as much upside as anybody, and he arrived at Kentucky at age 16 and was, going through a football season at 17 years old last year. And you go back and read even some of the comments from DeKeel Shorts and guys in the Kentucky program. They just said he goes hard every play. He's just one of those guys. And so I think this is a deal where you're, especially at that receiver spot, Dana Holgerson obviously trusts Tequil Shorts a lot. He was the one guy he wanted to bring in. And you got Nebraska fans, I think, have to, you show a little trust in Shorts too, that he's seen, especially Key and Gilmore up close, and he sort of knows their makeup, and that those guys will go to work, with all this NIL money and all whatever, they're still going to put it down and give you a good day's work and get stuff done. And so I think that's important. And I think Williams-Nwaneri is similar. I know Missouri fans, they want to wave their hand oh, big deal, he didn't do anything. It's his first year playing on the defensive line in college football. I know very few guys who have made just a dramatic impact at that position right off the bat. So I think Nebraska's got just an incredibly high-end prospect, and it's still amazing to me to think about, in the last class, Raiola in our rankings was number 7 overall, and Nwaneri was 6. I mean, 2 of the top 7 players, and people can do what they want with rankings, but that's pretty that's something to say out loud about Nebraska football, that you have that right now.
BC, for Nebraska, in trying to figure out this, the competition thing is obviously huge, right? They talk about it daily, and I was joking, during a bowl trip where he even made like the 12 days of Christmas a competition amongst the team. How would you like to see, or could you see coaches now that have to sift through numbers quickly, changing the structure of their off-season workouts and practices?
Oh, that's good. Yeah, I would guess so, right? I mean, you would have to. I mean, you got to make sure everybody's getting. They've always done a good job, I think, with this staff about players feeling like they are putting film out there. But you do need to probably get some guys out this spring. Like, it's not just that they're taking reps with like the third team or whatever. Like, you got to mix guys in with first and second and see what they're made of. See what they can do against who you think are the top guys on the other side of it, because they do probably have to have a quicker trigger on some things and thinking about where guys fit. And the players, in fairness to them, need to know that too, with the situation as it is and the numbers game there. And so, I think a big part of this too, we always say this about recruiting. Everybody who's on that field at Nebraska was the best athlete, like in fifth grade or in eighth grade. They were always the top dog in their class. And a big separator is who loves that game, like who just like they eat and sleep football. And I think whatever you can do to sort of figure that out with new arrivals, with guys who've been here a couple of years, the guys who are going to do the extra, I think that's what you're trying to calculate in a short amount of time. Who is not just a great athlete or whatever, but they have that extra desire just to learn the game beyond what might be even normal. So I think that can be a separator right now.
BC, how do you tell that with transfer portal guys when you're talking about recruitments that last a couple weeks at most, it seems like, whereas you've got a hard enough time trying to figure it out when you're spending a couple years with these high school kids?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly hard. And, I don't displace the idea that you could have someone in this day and age who just showed up and then leaves like in a few months. That's always possible too. But it is an interesting situation where you're banking so much on guys who you didn't get as much time with. I think a big deal was, you might remember in December, Matt Rule was talking about how he wanted to be really involved. Like, he's going to be involved, obviously, in the evaluating of guys. And I say obviously, but it's not obvious some other places. He was pointing out some schools where, like, the head coach, they didn't really know about a guy they'd offered out of the portal. And I think Nebraska does have that situation where their head coach does know that. And that's how I would want my head coach spending the calendar, the way it was set up at least. So I think Nebraska, at least had their head man and some of the key guys involved in going through that. But it's a good question, Ravi, because I don't think it's easy. That's why it probably helps when you have a DeKeel Shorts in this case who knows a couple guys and where maybe you have in on a few players. But it's a challenge.
That's Brian Christopherson, Husker 24/7. BC, we appreciate it as always. We'll talk next week.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks, B.
Andy Kendeigh coming up here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. We're joined now by our friend Andy Kendeigh from KETV. AK, what's going on? What's up, Andy?
Hey, morning, boys.
Hey. Hi, AK. How we doing?
What's going on? Yeah.
So that response kind of reminds me how you did Lauren when you threw it to her for her birthday yesterday at the game.
All right. First of all, you don't know how much of a moron you feel like when your coworker comes and there's flowers on her desk, and I say, "Hey, what's going on with the flowers?" And she goes, "Oh, Maddie got them for me. It's my birthday today." And I'm like, "Right, it's your birthday today. I knew that. Of course it's your birthday. It's January 14th. It's your birthday, right?" So yeah, that was it's the least I could do is wish her a happy birthday and embarrass her.
You threw it to her for the live hit, and I think it shook her up because the whole Bryce Hopkins thing had her flustered, and I was like, "That's totally AK's fault," because she was just cheesing from ear to ear. I was like, "Oh, happy birthday, LM."
Well, it was so funny too, DD. Yeah, so we have the picture of her live up on our video board because you put that in the screen before we talked to her live. And, you know, no question that everything's scripted, right? But I didn't script the line about happy birthday, and I think she was kind of taken back. And then she's reading, and she can't remember Hopkins' last name, and you see her just furiously looking through her phone like, I know this name. We talked about it like all afternoon long. And, you know, I'm yelling at her, Hopkins. And she finally got it, though. Good for her. That's what I say. I told her, I said, you know what? Being a young reporter like this, you're going to have times like this. You powered through it. Nobody cares. Everybody has a brain meltdown every once in a while. It's great.
If anybody can attest to it, it's her dealing with me because – you know, she shoots with me on Sundays, and she's literally spoon-feeding me.
Yeah.
She's like, "Oh, it's okay. It's okay. I'll figure it out. Hang on. Oh, I'll make it work. Don't worry." I was like, how embarrassing. She's like, "This guy sucks."
I will tell you, though, she has said, because, you know, people who don't know, you know, Damon comes in on Sundays to record the segments in the fall, and you know, I say, "Hey, how's DV?" And she's like, "Oh, clockwork. Guy's a pro. So whatever she does, it has to power through." I think
has 15 videos already cropped, clipped, marked, the whole nine. Sets it up for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I know I should. And she's like, you know, I'm super tech, not savvy. So, and I think she feels bad because sometimes Caitlin's in there doing work, and I know she's like, these people think this guy's smart. I have to help him out. But she's like, oh no, it's okay. I know it's an older computer. Don't worry. Like, I got it. It's like code. It's like code for God. You're dumb.
Well, I am seriously the dad of the office. So anytime there's a tech question, Lauren, come here.
Yep.
She's like one of my. She's like an older daughter of mine. You know, like it's like, hey, Lauren, how do I do X, Y, and Z? She's like, oh, you know, you're so dumb. You know, so yeah, it's I deal with that on a daily basis.
I got to ask you something before we get to Nebraska Rutgers, because you know you go live, and it seemed like it was a fairly lively crowd too for kind of a sleepy Providence midweek game. And you know, Creighton does their thing. They end up hammering them. They pull away. They got the win in Butler. That can come across as a little ho-hum. But the last couple of times listening to Mac, he clearly is wanting us to understand not only are they kind of a work in progress, he mentioned the warts last night, but you guys better be careful about taking things for granted winning in the Big East. Do you think on a year like this where he stressed how much fun he's having that he's appreciative with every win? Maybe more so than any time in his career?
Well, I do think that this year is different, right? And just because of everything they've had to go through and losing Pop Isaac so early and having to readjust on the fly and then having to deal with, you know, not silly stuff, but, you know, like goofy little curveballs you get on a daily basis, like, you know, having your best ball handler thrown up before a game at Butler. And, I think that we've gotten so accustomed to around here them, you just pencil them into the tournament. They're going to finish top 3 in the Big East, and they're playing a home game. You chalk that up as a win. It's not that easy. And I think because of their success, that says a lot about the program, because of their sustained success over the years. I think we have taken it for granted a little bit, just how difficult it is to win basketball games, not just in the Big East, but in a big power conference, like the top 3 power conferences in the country. Just because Butler hadn't won a conference game doesn't mean that's to chalk up an easy win. You saw with DePaul what they gave to Marquette last night in Chicago, that on any given night in the Big East, you can draw up an L, and if you don't bring it, that can happen. And I think I don't know if this is quote unquote fun for Mac. I think it's kind of like, but I do think that I do think as he gets older, we get older, as we see this all kind of evolve. A, how awesome they've been over the years, but B, how difficult it is to win in this day and age consistently in college basketball. And in a year like this, where I don't know if you can really make the argument that there's a super team out there, you think March is going to be anyone's game. So it's just a battle to get into that field, and then take your draw and see what happens. And I think that's what we're seeing here. I do think that I have noticed that he has said that any win in the Big East is a good win. We've heard that quite a bit lately,
Yep.
and it's true. And I do think he appreciates. I don't think he appreciates it more, but I think he's more verbal about his appreciation about winning in the Big East, because it is not an easy deal. And you can make the argument too with the Big Ten, because obviously what we know coming at us on Thursday is Rutgers. Everybody's chalking that up as a win. They've won 20 in a row, blah, 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 blah. Rutgers doesn't care. Rutgers doesn't care about that at all.
Andy, can I have this argument with you about what's the difference in your mind of taking for granted success and holding a program to the standard it's set for itself? Because that's what I'm struggling with Creighton right now, because you're right, we kind of do take the NCAA tournament for granted sometimes, but it's also kind of the standard of like, hey, that's sort of the bare minimum for what you do around here on a year in, year out basis. Like, so how do you kind of weigh that yourself?
Well, that's an interesting point. Yes, the standard is the NCAA tournament, and
it's still hard to get there. Like that, both can be true, right?
Still, yeah. Even with the field at wherever it's at 68, and who knows where it's going, it's still tough to get in. But I do think every year is different. And as teams as schools, I should say, are navigating through this NIL stuff, rebuilding their roster on a yearly basis, I just think every year is a new chapter. And that's why I think having sustained success is so difficult, because what's the common denominator is the coaching staff and the administration. And so if you are able to get through this period and continue to be at the NCAA tournament level, that says a lot about what your program is all about. So I just think this team is so much different than last year's team. I mean, yeah, there's a couple pieces back, but oh my goodness, it is night and day from Creighton, what I'm talking about. And we haven't even gotten to Nebraska, because you can make the same argument there. There's a couple pieces, yeah, but everything around them is totally different, and winning isn't guaranteed. So I just think that coaching these days, that's why you're seeing coaches at such a high level say, you know what, I'm done with this. I don't want to deal with this. I'm good. And Tony Bennett at Virginia, a guy who won a national championship right before the season. Yeah, you know what? I'm out. This is silly. This where we're going and down the road we're going, I don't want to deal with it. So, and in some ways I don't blame them, because this is a different game than what they signed up for. And kudos to the coaches that can persevere through this weird, wild west we're going through right now.
Tangible, what do you think is the first thing we see cleaned up against Rutgers? Nebraska taking better care of the ball or defending on the back end?
Well, you would hope it would be both, but I would think it starts with defense, because my goodness, they've had so many breakdowns, and the reason why they've lost these last couple games is because these teams have had such good open looks, right? and they're knocking down shots. Now, whether or not Rutgers can continue to do that, that's a different story. But obviously, they got to take better care of the football, better care of the basketball, because that has not been that needs to be a strength of them, taking care of the ball and limiting turnovers, and they haven't done that. But I'll tell you, if the team that's been built on defense is giving up triple digits, that's not a good sign. And I know Purdue was shooting in, everything they were throwing up was going in. But man, you still got to get a body out there and put a hand in a face and rebound.
AK, let's just speak that into existence for 8 months from now too. Take care of the football too. We'll do both.
Yeah, take care of the football. That's what I say. You can tell I've said that a few times, right?
AK, we'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks, boys.
Thanks, Andy.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, and brought to you by our friends at Centris Federal Credit Union. Federally insured by NCUA and an equal housing lender. If you're looking to make a switch financially in 2025, Centris has you covered. Whether it's just your basic checking and savings, car loan, mortgage, or home equity, they've pretty much got you covered no matter what you're looking for. CentrisFCU.org is where you go to find everything Centris can help you with. DB, we were talking a little bit off air, just a little bit.
Careful.
We're gonna tread lightly here.
It's completely nuts.
What happened, Shane?
Hey, you know what?
What?
He was getting ready to. So Shane, you have to let a little bit of that ride, because I'm not sure all our listeners know what you're playing when you do that. Kind of just play a little bit, then let them know what a good-natured person I'm being by allowing Shane to make fun of the Steelers.
Yo, Russell, man, what happened? We were 10-3. We were 10-7. We made it to the playoffs, but we got bounced out in the first round. I mean, like, somebody explain this to me. Russell Wilson, what did you do? You screwed up another 4th and 2. Did you forget how to play the game? The Ravens came with the rush. They tried to scramble but didn't get much. But then you got sacked once again. Didn't you learn from your mistakes when we lost them 4 games? I blame you while we're getting sent home.
Okay. You doing all right?
I could listen to that like 4 or 5 times in a row. Easy.
So you could just tell. Maybe a lot of it is because I don't feel great, but I'm just every day.
Mm-hmm. Get a little more okay with it?
Yeah. RP hit me with one that I wasn't going to laugh at.
It was pretty funny.
And I wasn't going to play it. I was like, nah, he knows me so well. Like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Man, I laughed for like 15 minutes.
It's pretty good.
I was driving, and I was like, do I play this through my Bluetooth? Okay, sure, I'll play it through my Bluetooth. So I'm on my way home, and I'm like,
I can't believe we're going home.
AI, did you hear the one about Jerry Jones? Did you see the Jerry Jones one talking about Mike McCarthy?
Yeah.
Like, those are hilarious.
Yeah, they're out of pocket.
And it all started with a little subtle Kirk Ferentz one that everybody kind of messed up.
Yeah.
When he was talking about Brian.
Yeah.
Brian vice versa. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he said that.
Well, and wasn't there a Dabble one about Iowa?
Yeah.
Where he
goes,
talking.
at least I'm not Brian.
Yeah, it's like, we're not trying to have any Brian Ferentz offense around here. And like, that one looked pretty good.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, that can't be real.
Yeah, Tomlin is all over the place.
It's all right. You're doing okay. You know, he finally addressed your rumors at least.
Say, don't waste your time.
Yeah, keep on.
What's your message to any team that may reach out to the Steelers to gauge interest or availability in your services?
I have no message. Save your time.
Like, he's so
good on you, Shane. That was fast. That was good.
I have no message.
Save
your time.
No, he does. Okay, so everybody's kind of scared of him a little bit, and I'm a big absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? That's why I don't always want Coach Rule being the smartest guy in the room, right? I just think checks and balances are good, and he has to finally make a good hire offensively, though, right? Because you inherited LeBeau and Arians from Cowher,
yeah,
right, and so you've struggled,
yeah,
since. And for whatever the reason, you didn't. And Haley drove me crazy. So don't let me just pretend to go all revisionist history with the whole Todd Haley hire at the OC thing. But like, you have to get that part right. So you can talk about the offensive. What's the word I'm looking for when you evaluations?
Yeah, okay.
But you have to get your coordinator right, and you can't be afraid to have somebody else be the smartest guy in the room.
Yeah.
That's what I hope is not happening. Because he's only had 3 DCs. So I get it. He's had like 6 offensive coordinators.
Yeah.
You know, so like you do have to get that right.
Well,
and I'm a Mike T guy. And it's not just because he's a brother, because Lord knows there's some brothers out there. They drive me up the wall.
I have no message. Save your time.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what you like to see, though, about, to bring it back to Coach Rule, with like the Dana Holgorsen move, right?
Or Phil Snow.
Yeah, where you're like, hey, this guy knows kind of better than me on this side of the ball.
Yeah.
Like I need somebody there to help me out, right? That's encouraged. That I think is the most encouraging thing about some of the hires we saw in the offseason and I guess in season.
You know, and I know Khan is his right-hand man is courted by the free world, and they're not going to keep that pair together in the front office, but like, just take a deep dive, man. Like, you have to be willing to – I get the whole hang your hat on defense, and you're not super busy in free agency historically. Yeah. Although the last year with Khan, they've been more aggressive.
Yeah.
You need to spend some money on offense.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
I mean, you tried to go – I don't even – we talked a lot about bridge quarterbacks yesterday. I know they sort of tried to piece it together this year. I thought they took a couple good swings at
I'm with you.
A guy
and it didn't cost you anything.
Yeah, right. It was almost no money. It was a guy that at one point a lot of people had a lot of hopes for in Justin Fields, in a guy that everybody agrees is talented, and a guy that has not that long ago been highly successful at this position in the NFL, in Russell Wilson.
And allegedly the Jets interviewed Arthur Smith.
Apparently, yeah. I don't know why.
They not watch Atlanta? They not watch the Steelers?
This is the thing that drives me the most crazy about the NFL retread market, is you don't even have to be good. Like, why is Cliff Kingsbury getting interviews?
Hey, he had an awkward interview, though. Because he's coaching, and it's like, hey, would you like to be head coach again?
I mean, why can't he just be honest and say yes?
But he finally did. He got around to it. He's like, yeah, at some point.
Yeah, it's like, yes, I would be. That's what I'm here for.
The hungry dog gets the bone.
But
how's that working out for you, Mick?
I mean, it's a joke.
I guess there's no hungry dogs in those in that locker room.
I noticed you low key totally did not respond to. I don't know. Maybe you were pretending to be homeless yesterday, but
when
you went over on the videos I sent you, did you not watch Jay Billis talk about?
Oh, I did. Yeah. I
appreciated your response on that.
I didn't respond.
Delusion.
Oh, okay. So you're going to lecture me about responding to text?
Listen. So my track record
You've
has
been a
gotten
lot better.
much better.
You've been a lot better.
Right.
You've been a lot better.
Okay.
I'm just saying. It's a little ironic.
No, don't do that deflect thing.
Little Alanis Morissette, a little too ironic.
I have no message. Save your time.
No, so the reason,
you should get,
full disclosure, and this has nothing to do with you. I had already seen that one, and so I was like, oh, I saw this, and then I forgot to respond. If I'm just being honest with you.
I mean, you were complete. You and Out of Breath Brian. Although Out of Breath Brian was mad at me because I think he thought I was.
You're hating.
I think he thought I was gassing it up a little bit. But
on Cronin.
Yeah, he was like, "Don't be adding your little words in there." I was like, "I didn't."
No, I didn't.
I was like, Brian, I didn't add anything. I was just saying.
Say what you got to say.
No, but it clearly is not working out for him.
No, but I think he was at the point he was willing to take that chance.
Okay, I'm not going to get into that.
Because what was Jay Billis's thing, right? He's like, hey, that's something you could say in the locker room. Don't say it publicly. My thing was he's probably said it in the locker room. It didn't work. Now he's saying it publicly, which we've said about Coach Rule several times, right?
But I told you the message is not going to be heard when you use all the wrong pronouns.
Which, hey, that's fine. I understand that. I admitted he probably didn't say it exactly how he wanted to, but I think I knew what he meant.
Like, we're not even on a hill anymore. You're like on a speed. Are you going to die on that speed bump?
Good morning again.
Somebody's going to.
I love that dude.
Like, that is, I think he was at the point where he said, hey, I get this might not work, but I feel like it needs to be said anyway.
Is that how you feel? So are you giving like those kind of latitude, like Jerry Jones, for instance? Same similar concept, like read the room, self-awareness. Like, this is supposed to be like this highly coveted job, and it's just not landing well. At some point, you just can't say it.
Well, I was giving Jerry Jones the benefit of the doubt yesterday, where I was like, hey, he's actually been pretty good at hiring coaches. I may not like how he goes about it. Cowboys fans may not like that it's been 30 years since they won a Super Bowl, but out of the 8 coaches he's hired, 7 finished with a winning record. with the Cowboys, right? So I was giving Jerry the benefit of the doubt, even if I don't love how he goes about it.
You think it's different with Jera because he knows all the ins and outs of the business?
Probably. I also think people have an issue with Jerry Jones because he seems to love the attention so much. Like, he seems to like the spotlight as much as he likes anything else about that job.
Unfortunately, because I've learned you talk about guys that have gone the other way. You know who I completely dislike now?
Who?
I'm out on Wilbon. I used to ride with Michael Wilbon. Boy, I can't stand almost anything.
He's been rough for a while.
Man, tough.
Because I used to like him too. I really did.
And Corny isn't any better, but
No.
I've never liked him. But anyway,
I thought you were going to say you're out on Wilson.
Russell Wilson's gotta go.
He's your guy, Russell Wilson.
So let's weld.
What happened?
Notice you didn't get any of the little clicky one-liners and
Steel
that whole
City
branding stuff. There was none of that. Shut your mouth and play ball.
Turns out that wasn't the problem. He just can't play anymore.
Wow. So he occasionally throws balls in the dirt. So he takes sacks. So he spins out for no apparent reason. What's the big deal?
Go get Sam Darnold.
I don't know, man.
You don't want Sammy D anymore?
I do want you to go back and sift through some of that game, though. If you're super bored.
Which one?
Sam Darnold, I may owe him a little bit of an apology.
The offensive line was pretty bad.
He wasn't as bad as I thought.
He wasn't good.
No,
but he maybe wasn't quite as bad as it seemed.
He didn't get any help from his coach either.
No help from the coach, no help from the O-line. Not a lot of help going around. We'll get some help from Mitch Sherman from The Athletic coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Now, gas station coffee enthusiast and Nebraska writer for The Athletic, Mitch Sherman.
It's great to see you. It's been since a cold day in the corner of Memorial Stadium.
Mitch Sherman.
I wrote that down because I'm going to use it in life.
Mitch Sherman.
It's not something that you generally hear, and it's certainly not something that you see put into action.
Mitch Sherman.
It's a lot more rare than you might think that they actually say it in the way that he says it and then go do it.
Here is Mitch Sherman.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now by our friend Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, how are you this morning?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you guys?
Team Mitch. Not too bad. A little heat wave today. May get into the 30s. We ready for that? You guys, you gonna hit that tan?
I'm ready. The next 2 days look okay, and then it's gonna get cold.
Yeah, I took one for
it's January.
I know, right? And you know what? Can I just say this? And maybe I have your guys' support or not. I don't know if I'm in my official AA here, but am I the only one that would like to see some snow at some point? Because this is we don't even get snow anymore. What is?
I was just having this conversation last night.
Bless your heart.
I was just having this conversation last night while we were getting ready to go for baseball practice, which would seem to be counterintuitive because you don't really want snow.
And they're rolling to take.
But we're indoors. We're indoors through March. So snow's fine, and it was noted that there has been more snow in most parts of Texas so far this winter than there has been here in eastern Nebraska.
So I can't. You're not gonna lobby for snow, or you're just dialing?
I want some snow.
Okay.
Can I get some weekend snow so I don't have to deal with it on the way to work? Can I negotiate that?
I don't know. It just doesn't seem right. It really doesn't. I guess boohoo me, right? No, but I have zero.
Too gray. It's just too gray and drab out there. Snow enlivens things up. Also, I got a snowblower. I got a new snowblower. Had a milestone birthday last month and decided to treat myself to something to help me with the clearing of the driveway, and haven't been able to use it. It's in the box.
With this forecast, it may stay there for a while, Mitch. I'm curious to get your thoughts. Did you by any chance hear none of kind of Commissioner Joel Klatt on some of his proposals for the college football playoffs?
I haven't dived into Joel Klatt's ideas. I've heard lots of other ideas, and I think that the need for a commissioner is greater now than it ever has been. This is another conversation that I was just having even today, this morning, before coming on here, about the proposal that we heard on Tuesday from college football coaches at their convention about some form of college football calendar reform and how the coaches want to see a portal period of 10 days in early January. And I think that's great to start the conversation. I also think it's naive and vastly short-sighted to only have that part of the conversation. There needs to be a larger conversation about the entire calendar and what you want to do with spring football as it relates to the changing world with the transfer portal, how you want to structure the season. And yes, the college football playoff is involved in that too. How do you get that done? You have to have someone who's leading the conversation. And I mean, I think it's better to be a person like Joel Klatt from the broadcast world than it is to do it with like Nick Saban, who's going to see things from the coach's point of view. And I mean, Nick Saban retired. So is this something that he would really want to take on? Like, I know James Franklin and others have spoken up and said, hey, whenever Coach Saban wants to take over, let's give it to him. And, you know, Nick Saban generally does a good job at whatever he does. I don't think that's that's the spot for him. I like Nick Saban. I like seeing Nick Saban, like, for selfish purposes on game day. I think he's been fantastic. Somebody with the worldview, the college football worldview of Joel Klatt, whether it's him or not, I think is the right person to put into that job. And the sport needs it. The sport needs a leader who can work with all of the interested parties.
So one of the things and they kind of go together, that he was suggesting to kind of to help with the seeding, was to have two different committees, right? One for kind of the bowls and to lose those tie-ins, and they oversee that. Then the other committee that is kind of the proponent of a 14-team playoff and not a 12-team playoff. And he was suggesting that you have, you have one major bowl at the end, and it would be at the Rose Bowl because, for whatever the reason, that's his favorite bowl, and it's like the granddaddy of them all. It's nostalgic, and
sure.
you end it on January 1st, but you keep all the games on campus up until then. If you could change one thing right now to help with the seeding, so you don't get a 5, 6, 7, 8 matchup in the semifinals, how would you go about sorting it out?
Two things. One, I think you put the best 4 teams as the top 4 seeds. Your reward for winning a conference championship is that you won a conference championship, that you've got that trophy, and I think that still means something. And it should mean something if you play in any of these leagues. Like, to be named the conference champ, like that's the next best thing to winning a national championship. It's valuable. It doesn't winning a conference championship doesn't impact your seed in other sports. I don't know why it should impact your seed in football. It should guarantee you a spot in the playoff if you're one of the top 5 conference champions, but I don't think that it should be 1 through 4 are all conference champs in the seeding order. It should be the teams that are viewed as the best 4. And then second, I think that those top teams should get a chance to play at home on their campuses, like what Joel is saying. I'm not sold on the idea of having every game on campus until you get to the championship, but I definitely think the first 2 rounds should be.
Yeah, you rotate the semis and then have the culmination at the end. So
yeah, okay, I like that. I like the idea of having the first 2 rounds all the way through the quarterfinals on campus sites. It's great. I mean, I was at Ohio State for the Ohio State-Tennessee game in the first round, and it was right up there with it was like nothing I've experienced in college football. It's different. I'm not saying that it's hands down better than going to a bowl site where you have lively participation from both fan bases, but it's there's an energy about that comes with having a college football playoff game on campus, and I think that the sport needs to tap into that even more.
One of the things, and this is actually where I would have started before expansion, he was a little more specific, but I was like, hey, it would be pretty cool because we could get away from strength of schedule and being so worried about rankings if everybody played the same number of conference games. He's a 9-1-2 guy, which he's suggesting 9 conference games, 1 Power 4 out of conference, and 2 G5 out of conferences.
Sure.
You think that's doable for everybody across the board?
Anything's doable. Yeah, they could do it. The SEC is not going to voluntarily sign up for that. Like, it's going to have to be required, which is again where it comes back to leadership and having some kind of a governing body or a czar of the sport who has the power to actually make people do things. But as long as it's left up to the conferences to make decisions for themselves, the SEC is not going to play 9 conference games.
If it's a 14, hypothetically, Mitch, I'm just looking for some pushback on why they wouldn't. Let's say you get 14 teams and you know the league champs in, the team that loses in the championship game is in, or you reserve slots for the Big Ten and the SEC. Why wouldn't the SEC want to keep that inventory in-house?
Yeah. Well, I think in their view, they beat each other up enough. And the way that they're going to look at it is the reason that their teams struggled in the postseason this year or didn't get the invites to the playoff that they thought were deserved, those factors would only increase if you added another conference game. Like the opportunity to lose, you had one more opportunity to lose, and the SEC wasn't peak.
Splitting the 14 to 20 mil anyway within the conference. Why not? Why not?
Well, it's about more than money. I mean, the SEC has a lot of money and they get a lot of money from their broadcast partners. I think if it was just a conversation about money, then maybe this would be an easier sell. It's a conversation about giving teams opportunities to play for the championship. And they feel, I don't know if I necessarily agree, but they feel it would have more of a detriment on their resumes to give every team one more opportunity to lose. Simple
Mitch,
as that.
Do you think the compromise would be, hey, we'll guarantee you 4 spots if you go to 9 games?
Okay. Then you can start to talk. That's to me, I would think yes. I would think if that's a guarantee, then you get him at the table.
I think you do. He suggested 4-4-2-2-1, which would probably like a Notre Dame type, and then 1 group of 5.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Some years that's going to be out of whack. Like you might. That's the thing we have to be wary of, is like becoming a prisoner of the moment, where you look at how you want to set things up and say, all right, this is how it would have fit, and it would have been all nice and tidy to do it this way in the 2024 season, and then the 25 season comes or the 26 season comes, and you try to apply those same puzzle pieces, and it's all out of whack. So I don't know. I'd have to look at more data over a number of years to see if that would add up, or you end up leaving out very deserving teams or having too many teams from a conference. There's going to be things that look messed up, and that's the way it is in every system. Like I was amused during the wild card weekend, although it did get a little bit redundant and tiresome every time there was a game that that wasn't like down to the last second. So basically every game except the Monday night game. Hey, why did the committee put the put the Packers into the playoff? Why did the committee put the Bucks into the like, okay, we understand, we get it. Like it's never going to be perfect. So you have to keep that in mind. But I don't know if it's like, if it should be that regimented. I like the idea of guaranteeing the SEC 4 spots and the Big Ten 4 spots is fine. The idea of saying there is going to be a group of 5 every year is fine, but I think there needs to be more flexibility within the rest of the makeup of the playoff. I don't know, like, okay, this conference gets 2, this conference gets 2. Well, what happens when the ACC has a great year, or the Big 12 has a great year, or vice versa? Yeah,
Mitch, I tend to agree, and I know that DB doesn't like this, but I think that's headed this way anyway. The way to give yourself the most flexibility is just to go to 16.
Mm-hmm.
Go 4 SEC, 4 Big Ten. I do think you guarantee a group of 5 spot, and then after that, it's just open. And then you still have the flexibility to reward conferences for being up while still guaranteeing the 2 big players at the table get what they want.
Okay. Hey, let me just say this.
Yeah.
Here's my biggest pushback, and then feel free, right? Because it's not just expansion. Are we looking to just be do we just want more football, or do we think it's going to promote more competition? Because clearly, up to this point, whether it's the CFP, whether it's 4, whatever, the more teams you have in, the worse the competitive balance has been in the beginning, in the early stages. Fair?
I think it depends on how you seed it, but so far, sure.
Yeah. Okay, because you went into this year with an average outside the semifinals of a 21-point spread. Yeah. Okay, so
part of that's a seeding problem, but yeah.
Okay, but to fix that, you can't. And Mitch, curious, you can't fix the seeding thing without some sort of uniformity on how to get there. So
that's fair. Yeah.
So why would you entertain more people to the party when you still don't know the dress code?
Because you get the 2 big. I mean, sorry, Mitch, I'll let you answer. But because you're trying to
go for it.
You're trying to keep the 2 biggest players happy. So like 16 is probably not the ideal number in terms of competitiveness at this point, but it might be the ideal number for keeping the Big Ten and SEC happy and still giving yourself flexibility with the rest of the conferences.
Because I probably wouldn't say much, Mitch, if you looked at me and you're like, DB, like it's a revenue generator, right? And I'll be like, oh, okay, more inventory, sure. Your TV partners, okay, but you can't tell me it's like I don't think you could convince me that you're trying to enhance the quality of what we're actually partaking in.
I'd like to see the quality of those first couple of rounds improve, and I think that you can.
But would you do that by adding more teams?
Well, the easy answer is no. Maybe in the second. If it was seeded more appropriately, I think the second round would look a little bit different than what we saw this year. Like stuff was out of order this year through the entire bracket because of the initial seeding being a mess. And you had things like Penn State's road to the semifinals versus Oregon's first game, when the last time we saw those two teams, or at least the last time we saw Oregon, it was beating Penn State. Like that kind of stuff could be avoided, or mostly avoided, more frequently avoided than it is in the current system. But yeah, I mean, if you go 1 through 16 and you have first round games, like there's going to be some clunkers. No different than what we saw on Wild Card Weekend. No different than what we see on the first weekend of the NCAA basketball tournament. Like in college football, it seems like a lot of times we get obsessed with like believing that everything's got to be a great game, and we've had some good games in the CFP this year, as you'd expect. It's just that we didn't get them in the first couple of rounds. That's kind of the nature of tournaments in general.
You know why I think that? This is just my opinion. Do you know why I think that is? Why we tend to have a little more angst over.
I have an idea, but go ahead.
It's because we sell people on this idea. It's a lie. We're like, oh man, competitive balance, and the more of the little guys, you give the little guy a chance, and it's disingenuous, and it drives me crazy, because what it really is it's just a ruse to allow more margin for error for teams at the top. It's not because historically double-digit dogs win back-to-back weeks like they could in the NFL. It's so number one, I don't like the pro model, because we're comparing it to a league that is built on parity. Mm-hmm. Like the NFL, like that's why the competitive balance in the NFL works. Maybe you'll get that way with college football, but I think it's what we're told should be the expectation of why we're doing it, and it never plays out that way. That's why I think people are combative with the visualization of the product.
That's deeper than where I was going to go. I think the reason that we have these expectations for college football and the games to all be world beaters in the college football playoff is because of how exciting the regular season is. And week in and week out, it's week 6, it's week 7, it's week 8. There's great drama in this sport every single week. Like you can check in on a Saturday night. If you miss a day and you check in on, let's say you're at a wedding on a Saturday in October and you miss college football for the entire day, and you get in front of your TV at 11 o'clock at night. Oh, what happened today? You're guaranteed that it was going to have been a wild day on some level. And it's more entertaining on a week by week basis than any other sport that we have. So when we get to the playoff, you would hate to see that go down. You would hate to not experience that in what is supposed to be the pinnacle of competition in the sport. So there's just this expectation that the postseason should be even more exciting than the regular season, when the reality is you're not going to get that every time in the first, and especially in the first and second round.
Mitch, can I make an argument there? Because I think you're right, but I also think it's kind of a myth, because the reason there's always a good game over the course of the regular season is because you have so many games on one day, right? There's a lot of terrible games on Saturdays, too. But we don't pay attention to those. We focus on the ones that are really good. It's my same argument with March Madness, right? There's a ton of terrible games the first 2 rounds of March Madness, but we focus on the really good ones. There's just so many that we can throw the bad ones away. The problem with college football, I think right now, is the games are going to get more competitive, but when you get to the college football playoff, there's not enough games to hide the bad ones.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that conflicts with what I said. Not every game's great, but there's a great product out there somewhere to enjoy every single weekend. And that's a big part of the reason why it doesn't translate to every weekend in the postseason, because your inventory's down.
Or if you want more competition, then and stop trying to make people happy, because that's the duality of the frustration. And I know we joked that it was deep, right? But the message is we want to be everything. We want to be this for the Bulls. We like these tie-ins. And oh, by the way, there's more people, and just look at how we're reaching the masses. But you, in the meantime, with kind of this advanced socialism, you're still promoting like, well, we want the best team. We want the best team. So there's like this capitalist component to it. Then let Boise State play at home, right? It wouldn't have been that if you weren't so in love with the bowl tie-ins and having that be a part of your sport, and you really were about rewarding what was going on during the regular season, it wouldn't have been that hard to just let Boise play at home. If you really wanted to level the playing field and reward a team, then let Penn State go play on blue turf or wherever those games would have been. You know what I mean? It's my point in saying that is not just the specifics of Boise. It's just that the mix, we're saying multiple things
trying to serve
once.
Too many masters.
It just that's why it just doesn't work.
I'm all for it if we feel like if the reason for seeding them in the top 4 is because we feel like they're one of the 4 best teams, and not because they won their conference. If they can meet both of those criteria, is fine. Even if they don't win their conference and you feel like they're one of the 4 best teams, then if it's in the case of Boise, they're going to have won their conference, like in all seriousness. But I give Boise a home game if they're one of the 4 best teams. Don't give them a home game because they won their conference championship and somehow there's this arbitrary rule that's why they deserve it.
I do agree that the bowl tie-ins and like trying to serve the bowl system while trying to have the best playoff product it's just not good. It's unnecessarily messy.
You got to show me how you can pull that off.
Mitch, real quick here, got about 90 seconds with you. If you were the college football commissioner, we've talked about a lot of different topics today. What's the first thing you're tackling? Is it the playoff format? Is it the calendar? Like
calendar?
Definitely the calendar.
It's the calendar because it's so all-encompassing. And the calendar, part of the calendar is the playoff, not necessarily how many. It can be how many teams are in the playoff, because how many teams are in the playoff impact the weekends and the weeks that you play on. So whether the playoff goes 4 weeks or 5 weeks, whatever. The calendar is the big thing, because it's the portal, it's spring football, it's the conference championship weekend, it's when the season starts, it's signing day. All of that stuff comes into it. I think it's the number one issue for college football that needs to be addressed in 2025.
1 or 2 portal openings, Mitch.
I'm okay with 2. I'm okay with 2 10-day windows. Like I think they went overboard. The coaches did with their proposal to say cut this thing down to 10 days, and that's all you get for the entire calendar year. Now, if you're going to get rid of spring, if you're going to move spring football to June, which is which I think should be done, and that was part of the proposal that my colleague Scott Docterman came up with in his 10-point plan to reform the college football calendar that was out on The Athletic a couple weeks ago. And Scott and I talked about this in December. Like we both agreed, like forget about traditional spring football, put it in June, and then you can have your portal guys come in at the end of the spring semester, and you're not so worried about getting them into school in January, jamming that thing in. If that's the case, then I don't know that you need a second portal window. But if you're going to have spring football today, the way that it is, then I think you need another window in April. But they can both be 10 days.
Fantastic. That's Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Great stuff as always. We appreciate it, Mitch.
Thanks, Mitch.
Okay, thanks, guys.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back, Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage. And it's time for Bet On It, brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook, the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. Make sure you get to the casinos in Lincoln or Omaha and get out and place your sports bets with Warhorse. DB.
Yeah, I'm telling Severe right now
About Taylor Mays?
Yeah.
I got to give you credit. So I'm scrolling through Twitter and I see Pete Thamel report that Taylor Mays is the new secondary coach at or safeties coach at Washington. And so I gave you a couple hints.
Yeah, you said, hey, Washington, did you see who Washington just hired as their safeties coach?
Yep.
And I was like, no, who?
And I go, he's from a school you like and got drafted by a team I like, which is not a lot to go on.
Yeah, that is what you said.
And you got Taylor Mays correctly.
On the first guess.
Yeah, on the very first guess, which I was very impressed by. Got to give you credit there.
And it's funny, too, because everybody kind of has those guys that you think are going to be one thing, and either to the good or to the bad, and then they turn out to be the total opposite.
Yep.
It's funny you bring him up because he's one of those guys. And now keep in mind, I talk to Severe all the time. I've known him forever, so there's a lot of catalog there.
And you guys are big draft nerds, so you guys both get into this.
Quietly, Taylor Mays is one of the guys that
one of your biggest whiffs?
He would just hammer me on. I was like, man, I'm telling you, man, Taylor Mays. He's like, hey, DB, I'm telling you no.
That's because
I'm telling you, Taylor Mays. He's like, DB, I'm telling you no.
So you know what's funny about that is I obviously have much less experience with Severe than you do, but I know one of his biggest pet peeves was Taylor Mays' biggest weakness.
Hips.
Yeah. Severe is all, whether it's quarterbacks,
Yeah.
whatever. Severe is so laser focused on hips. There's like a handful of things he really nails in on.
There have been some doozies.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like,
do you know your worst one off the top of my head? Because I know mine.
I do.
What's yours?
Robert Meacham, wide receiver.
Oh, yeah, Tennessee?
Yeah. Went to the
Saints?
Yeah. And I was like, Michael, I'm like, that dude can flourish there. Trust me. He's like, Damon, he can't catch. I was like, but his skills, he's like, he can't catch. I'm like, you can learn how to catch.
Yeah. He didn't learn how to catch.
No. So that's one.
My worst, I'll tell you.
I'll give you another one.
Okay.
That wasn't great. I was actually mad they drafted him. And he is from your school. The school you cheer for that is not Nebraska.
Florida State.
The Steelers drafted him. And he turned out to be a great player for them. And I was livid when they took him.
Give me position.
Outside linebacker.
You're mad.
What era are we talking here?
So this would be, I don't know when you call it. It would be the late 2000s.
I can
early to
I
late
can
2000s.
see him. What? Give me the name.
Lawrence Timmons.
Yep.
Yeah, I was beside myself.
He was really, really good.
And he was pretty good.
He was really good. You know my worst one, and it's a bad one.
Why are they showing that?
I don't know.
It's Nebraska.
It's a bad one for me.
Who?
I was a Blaine Gabbert over Cam Newton guy.
That's fun.
That's a bad one. That's
It's a joke.
That's a bad miss.
That's pretty funny.
That's my all-timer, I think, is I was Blaine Gabbert over Cam Newton. I was watching Cam, and you know me because I like Gus Malzahn's offense, right? So I watched a lot of it. I see what's going on. I'm looking at it, and I go, I don't think he can read a defense. It's one read, and then he takes off. There was a lot of that at Auburn with Cam Newton. I was like, what are you going to do with that? What I didn't account for was the fact that Cam Newton's a total freak show, and that's going to work in the NFL. Yeah, I did not. And then, you know what? I was, you know me, when I think I'm right, I was arrogant in the preseason when Cam's throwing about 38% completion. It's bad. It's a bad, that might be a little low, but it was pretty close to, I think it might have been 42. Yeah. And in the preseason, I'm like, okay. And then he comes out literally week one, throws for 400 yards. I go, this might not go my way.
I've had
You're winning.
I've had some doozies.
I was arrogant in the preseason when that was happening.
I'm still not sure. Like just recently, about Washington, tight end at Pittsburgh. I was like, it's gonna be a monster.
Yeah.
He's like, I was like, I'm telling you, he's perfect prototype for that offense.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't had the greatest offensive mind since he's been there.
Or quarterback play.
Yeah.
So you're giving yourself a little bit of, maybe a little bit of hope there? A little bit of hope on the back end?
Door's always open.
A little bit of wiggle room?
Yeah, door's open.
No, I do think it's funny because usually when I'll miss on an eval, I'll think a guy can play.
And he can't.
That can't. I very rarely say, especially in basketball. I actually can't think of one off the top of my head in basketball because I'm better at evaluating there. But I can't think of a guy off the top of my head in basketball, and there's not that many in football where I think he sucks and he's actually can play.
I'll give you another one. Devin Bush.
Oh, yeah.
I thought was going to be
You know what? It was a pretty big miss for me. I thought Noshawn Moreno was going to be a really good running back.
Noshawn was pretty good, though.
He was all right, but I was enamored with his balance
He
at
just
Georgia.
couldn't stay healthy.
Yeah.
He's legit. I wouldn't say you flame. I don't want to help you out, but
I appreciate that.
I would not say you flamed.
I was a big Noshawn guy. I was so incredibly just flabbergasted by
There's a stretch of Georgia
his balance
backs where
oh man, because you had Noshawn and Gurley weren't back to back.
No, but you're gonna forget some, so I wouldn't even try.
Yeah, you're probably right. But they had and some of them transferred out and ended up somewhere else, and you still ended up being good. Was it Chubb?
Who was the 5-star that didn't even end up getting drafted?
Who am I missing?
Oh, he ended up at HBCU, didn't he?
Milton.
Yeah. They've had some really, really good backs there.
His high school tape,
unbelievable.
Silly.
Yeah.
It's not even that long ago. You could pull. I mean, he's probably a handful of years ago.
Yeah, I don't think he was that long ago.
Maybe.
I might.
No big deal.
Speaking of recruiting,
what do we got here?
Oh, that's why I saw the Nebraska Miami 2001 on television.
Yeah,
it's the U.
Oh yeah, we're on 30 for 30 now.
That's
unfortunate. We're gonna have to change that channel during the break here.
Work on it.
DB, you go. Well, I was trying to get it over to your favorite show on Sportsmanlike.
I do like that.
That was on right before this.
I do like that.
That's
show.
your jam.
I do like this show.
Do you have any winners tonight?
Yeah, I got a few.
Since it is bet on it.
Yeah.
What do we got?
So we're doing pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
We're back. It's not what is it? It's 3 in a row, right?
I believe so. Yeah, it's not quite like the 15 you rolled off earlier this year, but
it's 18. But who's counting?
You were apparently.
All right. So
we do have a good one tonight,
though. My buddy told me.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. You should 19-2. I never did get that dinner either.
Tell him to hook you up. Come on.
Yeah, I may bag that one.
Selfish,
like you have the two with me.
Listen, I could be home. I might be homeless in a month or two. I might need you. I don't know.
What's that?
I gotta save those.
You gotta save them up.
Yeah.
You got Kansas, Iowa State tonight. You have
It's gonna be a sensational game.
-6.5.
Seems like a lot, doesn't it?
It kind of does, but I also, if we're gonna listen to Channel 3 Sean and think that Iowa State might be one of the best teams in the country,
I'm telling you, Iowa State is fantastic.
And I'm not enamored with Kansas.
And Kansas's backcourt is gonna have their hands full with the clones.
I'm not, especially their offense. I don't love the way Kansas operates. 6.5 feels a little high, but I'm not mad at that number. Not enough to take Kansas. I'm not.
No, I'm with you.
I might go Iowa State there, if anything. Do you have any that you feel real strongly about?
I do.
What do we got?
I love your Jerry Stackhouse lists. Vanderbilt Commodores.
Okay.
I think they're laying 6.5.
I'm bringing it up right now.
To the Gamecocks of South Carolina.
8.5 now.
Ugh.
That must have gone up.
Ugh.
Or maybe it depends on where you get it. But 8.5 seems a little higher than you like.
I like 8.5.
You'll take that 8.5 still?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Vandy's pretty good.
Okay. Who else we got?
Dang, I always want the best number.
Sure.
Muffins. That's what we say for bad words in our house. So don't make
muffins.
Yeah.
I thought you were more of a fudge guy.
I've been trying to wean off of that because there's 2 or 3 of you that have it down to it's aggravating. And the coaches at Westside, they think it's hilarious.
You know whose fault that is?
Whose?
Sauter started.
No,
it.
I know.
It's his fault.
I know. And he, unfortunately, he
nailed it.
I had to take a double take. I was like, shoot.
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good. And I'm going to take one and I like the team that they're playing.
Okay.
But I watch them all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The Volunteers.
Oh, against Georgia.
Laying 11.
Ooh. Against a pretty game Georgia team.
I told you, if Georgia was ranked in the preseason, they would be ranked higher now.
Yeah, because they're good 14-2. They'd probably be top 15.
It's a good basketball team.
I've got it at 11.5.
I like the Tennessee Volunteers.
You like a couple big numbers today. Vandy against South Carolina and Tennessee against Georgia.
Lock it up.
That is bet on it. Are those likes or locks?
Those are locks. And,
locks.
What I need you to do is lock up changing this channel.
I thought you loved Miami.
Not a different era. Get this off the television.
That's DB. I'm Ravi. Let's bet on it. Brought to you by Warhorse Sportsbook. We'll be back to finish up the show on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla here on the Pillar Exterior stage at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. DB.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. You said something off air, and I sometimes I hate when we come back with it.
That's okay.
But it's usually important.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, who would, again, anybody not named TK, what do you think the savings are? If any.
Monetarily?
Yeah, so I was joking with St. Louis Jordan about ACC foe Cal.
Which is still seems hilarious. But
taking the midweek puddle jumper flight to Chapel Hill tonight.
Although they may have to take a puddle jumper to actually get to Chapel Hill if they're not chartering.
I'm like,
Chapel Hill doesn't have a lot of big airports.
I'm like, I got it. You said, oh, they got to schedule that better. And I was like, oh, let's see what's on the slate after Carolina. It is NC State at Raleigh.
So they help them out there a little bit.
Okay, so it's a Wednesday to Saturday. So Chapel Hill to Raleigh obviously is a bus.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to stay 2 nights, probably.
I would guess, yeah.
And then fly out after NC State.
What time's the game on NC State?
3.
Yeah, probably. Sometimes with late games, sometimes this basketball will stay an extra day.
Yeah, and I get it because it's not the same as football. It's not the same as rooms for
it's
80
like,
guys.
It's 20. 30 with
25, 30.
25,
staff.
30 with staff, yeah. But, yeah, it's a I think
that ain't cheap either.
It's not, but it's even if it's not cheaper, it is easier.
$200 a night minimum.
Yeah, so you're talking
even with a group rate,
$6,000 per night.
Jeez.
So you're staying 2 extra nights, $12,000. Because you're flying. Well, they probably flew in yesterday, to be fair. That's what most teams do to Omaha. Because a lot of them stay at where Natasha works. And so they usually fly in.
And football stays right here.
Yeah, they usually stay the night before. And so that's one night on Tuesday, which you'd have regardless. And then you've got Wednesday night, Thursday night, Friday night. So that's 3 nights. That's $18,000.
TK, I haven't even done anything today yet.
Although they probably would have flown in Friday anyway, so 2 extra nights.
I did read the glass house comment though, TK.
Shoot, yeah,
I'm holding that one.
I think that was to do with the texting, but that's okay. You have been better. You've been a better texter as of late.
Thank you.
I appreciate the effort. It seems like you started a New Year's resolution, although it started earlier than that. Let's say it was before that.
Yeah.
Maybe last year it was a New Year's resolution, and I think you nailed it, DB.
Good morning again.
Hi, Cam. One of the few people that's nice to me.
I'm so nice to you.
That's a lie.
Do you have any college football
He's
New
not
Year's?
nice to
We're
you
talking
when
about the
he's here.
calendar with Joel and some of his ideas there. We're talking about with Mitch as well. Like if you had some New Year's resolutions for college football, where are we going there? Because you and Mitch both jumped on calendar, but let's get into the specifics a little bit more. Like which part of the calendar do you think needs fixed the most?
So I'm big on this. The last 3 years, if anybody's ever listened to me, they know I hate the month of December.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you have to change. You have to lighten the load in December.
So they're trying to clean that up with the transfer portal.
I'm all for the portal being in January, the 10-day window.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't move spring ball, then you still need a second. You still need a second portal entry.
I think you need a second portal entry even if you do move spring ball.
Well, so when would it be? So let's say if you move spring ball to June, you want a July portal?
Yeah. I'd give me 10 days at the beginning of July. You can get guys on campus right before fall camp.
But here's the thing, though. You have to get to 105 by the end of fall camp.
You're right, yeah. So I probably wouldn't move spring ball, personally. I probably wouldn't. I'd either leave it where it is. I might move it to like the month of May. So that
you know what's funny is we think April's late around here.
Yeah.
So we'd have to kind of change our
perspective on it.
Our thinking.
But if you're trying to avoid school for the most part, by the beginning of May, you're basically done the first week of May in college, right? So you could do 1 week of overlap, or you start the second week of May, go to the first week of June. That's your 15 practices. And then you'd have most of June to figure out the transfer portal.
Now, he said something interesting. You have to go back and listen because I didn't agree with everything. I thought there were some good starting points.
Okay, real quick on spring practice. Does it need moved? Like, am I missing something on why it should be moved?
So the only thing I would do different if you want to give yourself a little more time for evaluation, like if you wanted if you don't want the academic calendar, you could allow for late arrivals.
Mm-hmm.
So that would clear you to get somebody on campus and not have to worry about school.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you're not you won't be as rushed. You won't be like this popular case study at Penn State about a quarterback that only James Franklin is upset about. No, that's not true because it did make some national news.
A little bit. It made a headline if you're into college football.
So I don't want to be dismissive, but you could always just boot Aller and keep him.
Yeah, you could.
But anyway,
I don't think that's likely, but you could.
The one thing that I would do.
No, but
outside of the calendar.
What's that? It's the conference games.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure.
I think that's a non-negotiable.
Can I convince you? Because we've talked about this before, and I don't disagree. Get everybody to 9 conference games or 8 conference games, whichever the number is. Just everybody be on the same number, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't have a preference, do you?
With these big conferences, I want 9. I want 9.
That's fine. Okay, give me 9. Give me 9 conference games.
I like the 9-1 too.
The 1 power conference game, non-con, and 2 group of 5s.
Yep.
No more FCS, none of that.
Although I'm not going to say no FCS, although there are some FCS programs like that could use or want the payday.
Yeah.
So I don't have any problems with that. And you've kept your inventory
in-house
for the conference for 9 games.
So,
you're
9-1-2.
sharing that money with yourselves.
But no more than one FCS game.
Correct.
Fair? So 9-1-1-1.
I'm not even sure if I care. I don't. You want to play
2 FCS teams?
No, you do that at your own risk.
Sure. Yeah. Because people, if it comes down to strength of schedule or something else with somebody else, then you're looking at, I played 2 FCS teams. I'm going to eat that.
Yeah.
That's fair.
You run your own
risk. It's the
risk.
same as a non-con in college basketball, right?
Now, the other thing he said that I felt like was I'm not really on board with, but I'm already kind of anti-auto qualifier in terms of spots.
Mm-hmm.
This is operating under the assumption that you get 4 teams from the SEC and the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And he's pretty animate about it. Like, you kind of have to hear his argument that these are clearly the 2 best conferences. I got no problems with the set-aside spots. That's what he was saying.
I think that's the only way you get the SEC to 9
And
games.
he said instead of kind of, if you want to play meaningful games late, you have play-in games of the 3 through 6 teams in the respective conferences. So 3 would play 6 and 4 would play 5.
Okay.
And those would give you your 2 other spots within the conference.
I'm a little hesitant to add another game.
Well, it's not. It's how you would do the.
It's how you would structure the first round.
Yeah.
Okay. I was misunderstanding.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know that there's.
And he was kind of selling it as protecting you, the fan, which
he
said it a couple times. I was like,
the one thing I agree with protecting the fan is getting the second
conference
round on campus still.
Yeah. Because you realize my level of frustration is you're saying you're rewarding Boise with a bye.
Yeah, no,
but you're not letting them play at home.
Yeah. That whole thing this year, the way it was set up was stupid. Right? Like, your reward for winning your conference is the bid into the playoff. And then after that, it should be based on seeding. But that's part of the reason you need the second round of games to be on home site still, so that if you do get a bye, you're not punished.
Yeah.
Like, you're getting punished for being better, right? Like, you think Oregon feels really good about not having a home game?
Oh, I know.
Like, Autzen a way harder place to play than almost anywhere. Like, not only do you have the travel, but it's actually a hostile environment. Like, Oregon was done no favors. I don't know if they would have won anyway.
No, I know.
Right? But, like, you didn't do them any favors. Like, they should get credit for beating Ohio State in the regular season. If we that's the whole thing I've heard about with too many teams in the playoff is, regular season doesn't matter anymore. We could have made the regular season matter in that matchup.
Now, I will say this: if you hold the teams to where they are with the deal as is through 2026, right? It gives you 2 more years
to play with it a little bit,
to have some evidence on how you feel about the movement of the conference. 4 years into NIL, 3 years into the setup, 4.5 years into NIL and the setup, where you could start to have discussions or at least have more evidence on a 3-win team, a 4-loss team here versus a
2-loss team from a different conference.
Right.
Yeah.
Because right now we're operating under the assumption
that,
the
Big Ten and SEC are just going to be better.
3-loss Bama is better than blank.
2-loss SMU.
So you'll get a little more data.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
For that to go away.
We don't have to change any of this tomorrow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that.
I would change the home sites tomorrow to the second round. I think that's fine. And I would change the seeding of not having to be conference.
The seeding was the biggest flaw.
Because you brought this up.
And I said it when they were slotting the teams.
Yeah,
I'm like,
this doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
Like and
I was laughing. Like Saban, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was like, really?
Well, and you brought this up where the 5, 6, 7, 8 are in the semifinals, right?
Yeah.
And 3 of those 4 were definitely 3 of the 4 best teams in the country.
Right.
Penn State was probably closer to that than I gave them credit for, or most people did. But you're talking about you had 4 of the 5 best teams in the country probably in the semifinals. That's a good job. But the fact that they were 5, 6, 7, 8 means that your seeding was terrible.
It's not right. And so what people would say is she has the hat.
That's the Penguins, though, not the Steelers.
I understand,
but it's the same style.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good Squirrel.
I know. Listen, I saw Pittsburgh and it was like nuts.
DB sees a cool Pittsburgh hat and everything else goes out the window. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We will be back tomorrow here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, presented by Centris Federal Credit Union.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.